Chapter 540. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? Here's an interesting novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 542. A huge fortune of primary stones. Meanwhile, at the Tao-seeking mountain of the four great factions. Accessed. Duan Qing? What bullshit, Duan Qing? Progenitor Wendao wore a dark expression as he snapped. I want to know where Qin Nan is. Where is Qin Nan? It's been 3 months, and we still can't find any trace of him despite the cooperation of the four great factions? The entire hall was filled with Progenitor Wendao's fury. The Wendao elders exchanged glances with one another with unpleasant looks. In addition to Qin Nan's disappearance, even Tang Qinshan, Princess Miao Miao, Gong Yang, Long Hu, Zhao Fang, and the others who had accompanied Qin Nan to the trial at the Ocean of Death seemed to have vanished into thin air. Investigate. Double the reward again. Progenitor Wendao snapped, as if he was enraged. Double the reward? The Wendao three elders were visibly moved by his words. Currently, anyone who discovered Qin Nan's whereabouts would become Progenitor Wendao's disciple and receive 4 sacred weapons. If the reward was doubled, wouldn't that be 8 sacred weapons? Time is running out. Progenitor Wendao snapped coldly as a thought crossed his mind. Roger. Following this, as Duan Qing's name was spread across the entire eastern continent, another shocking piece of news was made known to the entire eastern continent. Love Go Little Say could double the reward for finding Qin Nan. What? Double the reward? Gasp, 8 sacred weapons. That's 8 holy Tao weapons. What exactly did this Qin Nan do? Ha ha ha. 8 sacred weapons. If I were to stumble into this Qin Nan, I would surely capture him. TSK, it's not a peaceful year. First, the 4 great factions are trying to hunt Qin Nan down, and now Duan Qing has become Zhou Bihua's disciple. Please go here to read a book. While the entire eastern continent was in an uproar, in the cultivation hall of the Vermilion Bird platoon, Xue Meng and the other 2 sat down cross-legged. Clusters of blood-red light floated above their bodies. The blood-red light was like fire, and as it burned, the blood-red light would fuse into the bodies of Xue Meng and the other 2, modifying their auras. The blood of the phoenix is indeed mysterious. Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he sat down with his legs crossed. He took out the drop of Vermilion Bird's blood and swallowed it. Rumble! An incomparably surging and scorching power surged within Qin Nan's limbs and bones. Apart from that, there was also a mysterious aura flowing within Qin Nan's body. This aura seemed to have come from the 9 heavens, but it also seemed to have come from the primordial era. Qin Nan guided this mysterious aura to slowly circulate through his body. With each circulation, his blood began to boil. This was his battle god bloodline. It seems that consuming the phoenix blood will strengthen my bloodline. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. His bloodline of the divine god of battle had evolved when he merged it with the left eye and left arm of the divine god of battle. However, the power of the bloodline was extremely obscure, thus it was impossible to tell what it was. According to Qin Nan's speculation, the power of the bloodline was too powerful, thus it was extremely difficult to fully awaken it. Time gradually passed. 10 days after Qin Nan had consumed the phoenix blood, a loud explosion took place inside Qin Nan's body. Following this, Qin Nan's flesh was engulfed in a layer of illusionary flames, while the illusionary figure of a phoenix floated behind him. It turned out that after refining the phoenix's blood, even his body had obtained an enormous increase in strength. My flesh is most likely stronger than an ordinary first layer, Martial Highness. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with joy, before he soon calmed his thoughts and headed to the second-floor hall. Refining the phoenix blood was secondary, as the most important thing was the art of the immortal Vermilion Bird. Even a super genius like Mu Qingye would go crazy for the art of the immortal Vermilion Bird. In addition to Zhou Bihua, Elder Wang was present in the second-floor hall too. Elder Wang let out a smile when he saw Qin Nan. Duan Qing, do you know how many people have come to the Vermilion Bird platoon to ask about you in the past 10 days? As a matter of fact, in the past 10 days since Qin Nan had gone into seclusion, the experts of the White Tiger platoon, the Black Tortoise platoon, and the Sky-Scorching Ancient Kingdom had all come to the Vermilion Bird platoon to meet him. They were eager to know what this Duan Qing was capable of, to be recruited by Zhou Bihua as his successor. That won't be necessary. Zhou Bihua waved his hand and said with a calm smile, before I teach you the art of the immortal Vermilion Bird, let me remind you that the Vermilion Bird platoon has quite a number of enemies too. They might be targeting you, so you should be prepared for it. Qin Nan nodded his head. Apart from the fact that he had offended the 4 great factions, he had always been a person who would not provoke others if they did not provoke him. However, if someone were to provoke him, he would definitely get his revenge. Condense. Zhou Bihua let out a loud shout as a beam of red light shot out from between his eyebrows. If one were to take a closer look at the red glow, they would see countless runes flowing within it, each of which contained a profound meaning, preventing anyone from peeking through them. Buzz. Even Qin Nan's mind began to buzz after being struck by the red glow. The main reason being that the martial art was too obscure, as the principles it contained were extraordinary. Chapter 541. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 543. The Arrival of the Third Prince. Calm down, calm down. Qin Nan murmured in his heart. As he collected his thoughts, a self-mocking grin appeared on his face. Advertisement. That was fast. He had been through a lot, but he did not expect a small amount of primary stones to be able to shake his mind. However, he had no choice as he was too poor. Let's begin. Qin Nan waved his hand and took out a total of 960,000 primary stones, which piled up into a small mountain. His hands turned into phantoms, flashing rapidly, grabbing handfuls of primeval stones and swallowing them. 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. After devouring a total of 100,000 primary stones, Qin Nan finally came to a stop as his forehead was covered in cold sweat. That was 100,000 primary stones, and the divine battle spirit still had not ranked up? Time to devour them all. Qin Nan clenched his teeth and increased his speed. 300,000, 500,000, 800,000. After devouring 950,000 primary stones, the divine battle spirit let out a buzz as the 7th golden glow was emitted from its back. The suppression of the divine battle spirit rose once again, causing it to become incredibly terrifying. Finally, 7th grade D-ranked. Qin Nan exhaled deeply. A 6th grade D-ranked martial spirit was considered a top genius in the upper district's eastern continent. A 7th grade D-ranked martial spirit was considered a super genius. Time to recover the primordial spirit of the Vermilion Bird. Qin Nan waved his hand and withdrew the forbidding aura. He then transmitted his voice to Zhou Bihua, who came to the 2nd floor alone. Zhou Bihua's eyes flickered with astonishment as soon as he arrived. He could sense that Qin Nan's aura had become stronger in just a short period of time, as if a sharp glow was accumulating within his body. Chaos Qi. Qin Nan flicked his finger and shot out 66 wisps of Chaos Qi. As the 66 strands of primal Chaos Qi entered Zhou Bihua's body, the life force on the phoenix diagram behind him began to glow and become more vigorous. Qin Nan's left eye of the divine god of battle flickered as he immediately discovered that even though the life force of the Vermilion Bird primordial spirit was recovering, it was still too weak to be awakened. Release 500 strands of Chaos Qi. Qin Nan flicked his finger and sent out 500 wisps of chaos energy. Boom! A magnificent flame burst out from Zhou Bihua's back, burning fiercely, while the cries of phoenixes could be heard. The vigorous life force caused the entire hall to tremble. A hint of shock appeared in Zhou Bihua's eyes. He could sense that the vitality of the phoenix origin spirit had recovered by at least 1/10. This was 1/10. What was the origin of the mysterious aura in Qin Nan's body? Senior, that's all for today. Qin Nan did not continue to unleash the chaos chi, as it was too powerful. It would be too terrifying if the primordial spirit of the vermilion bird primordial spirit was awakened on the first try. In order to prevent that from happening, it was better to take it slow. Well, 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 Zhou Bihua said good 3 times in a row. His face was flushed with excitement as he said, "It's all thanks to you this time. Qin Nan, I won't say too much. If the primordial spirit of the vermilion bird is awakened, you will be the savior of the entire vermilion bird platoon and the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. Senior, there's no need for that. There's no need to be so courteous between us." Qin Nan immediately waved his hand. "Haha, I won't say too much. You need primary stones, right? Don't worry, I'll go out now and get enough primary stones for you." Zhou Bihua let out a hearty laugh. Without any hesitation, he tore through the void and left. "Now that the platoon leader is helping me to get primary stones, I believe it will be a huge amount. I won't have to worry about primary stones anymore. Now that the situation has come to an end, the only thing I should do now is to improve my strength." Qin Nan's eyes flickered coldly. The 4 great factions were trying to hunt him down. Now that he had continued to improve his strength, it was only a matter of time until he revealed his true identity and challenged the 4 great factions. Following this, Qin Nan withdrew his thoughts and began to comprehend the art of the immortal vermilion bird. The art of the immortal vermilion bird was different from ordinary ancient martial skills. It was the strongest martial skill of the vermilion bird tribe, and only the vermilion bird was allowed to learn it. However, at that instant, a loud voice could be heard coming from outside the vermilion bird platoon. "The 3rd prince is here." Qin Nan's eyes sprang open with a hint of astonishment. "The 3rd prince? The 3rd prince of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom?" Following this, Elder Wang's voice could be heard in Qin Nan's divine sense. "Duan Qing, come down at once. The 3rd prince is here specifically to see you." "See me?" Qin Nan was startled. There was no relationship between him and the 3rd prince, and he had never met him before. Why was he here all of a sudden? Filled with doubts, Qin Nan's figure arrived at the yellow soil dojo with a flicker. Meanwhile, there were 2 young men standing on the yellow soil dojo. One of the young men was wearing a linen robe. His hair was tied up in a bun, and his eyebrows were sharp. He had a gentle appearance, as if he were a poor scholar. However, Qin Nan quickly scanned with his left eye of the divine god of battle and discovered a strong golden aura inside the young man's body, which prevented him from peeking through his left eye of the divine god of battle. Even Shao Qi, whom he had met in the Leisure Inn, had a golden aura that could not be compared to this young man. "Cultivator Duan Qing, we meet again." At that instant, a voice could be heard. It turned out that the person standing beside the young man was none other than Shao Qi. "This is..." Qin Nan was utterly confused. "Haha, Duan Qing, I forgot to tell you. Our leisure restaurant was built by 3rd brother, and I'm the one who manages it," Shao Qi said with a smile. He didn't forget to add, "I'm 3rd brother's cousin." Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. He did not expect such a relationship to exist behind the scenes. "Cultivator Duan Qing, I've heard a lot about you." The 3rd prince wore a pleasant smile as he spoke. "I'm sorry for the sudden visit, so I didn't prepare any gifts. I hope Cultivator Duan Qing won't blame me." "3rd prince, there's no need to be so courteous. I've always been a straightforward person." Qin Nan shook his head and said in a serious tone, If there's anything the third prince needs my help, I'll try my best to help. It seems like I've underestimated you." The third prince was slightly startled, before he burst out laughing and glanced at his surroundings. Shao Qi straightened his face and took out a mysterious compass, which emitted a glow that encapsulated the entire yellow soil dojo. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. He could easily tell that even a martial sacred realm expert would not be able to peek through the glow emitted by the compass, as it was able to isolate all sounds. What exactly was the third prince planning to do in such a grand manner? Cultivator Duan Qing, the third prince let out a deep sigh as if he had made up his mind, before he said in a serious tone, "I hope you can help me to claim the throne." His words were like a clap of thunder that shook the heavens. Chapter 542. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 544. Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground Seize the Throne? Qin Nan was startled. His gaze toward the third prince became strange. Read the full article. For more information, visit www. Seizing the Throne, Overthrowing the Rule of the Sky-Scorching Ancient Kingdom. Why was he here for such a shocking matter? Besides, this was the first time the two of them had met. Cultivator Duan Qing, you've misunderstood. Seeing his reaction, the third prince immediately waved his hand and said, "When I said seize the throne, I'm not referring to my father's position, but the crown prince's position. Now that my father has been in power for 100 years, it's time to appoint a crown prince. There are over 30 princes and princesses in the royal family." Qin Nan finally came to a realization after hearing the third prince's explanation. The crown prince was the next emperor of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. Currently, many princes and princesses were competing for the crown prince's position, resulting in an intense battle. Qin Nan let out a sigh and said, "Third prince, forgive me for being blunt, but while the princes and princesses are competing for the crown prince's position, I'm only the 99th batch platoon leader of the Vermilion Bird platoon. There's nothing I can do to help you." Qin Nan was not stupid. Many factions would take part in the competition for the crown prince's position, resulting in an intense battle. The third prince was only here because of the Vermilion Bird platoon, and because he was Zhou Bihua's successor. Not at all. The third prince wore a smile and said in a sincere tone, "Cultivator Duan Qing, the competition for the crown prince's position is indeed complicated. I won't drag you into it. However, since the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground is about to be opened, and the trial is extremely important, I hope you can accompany me and achieve a good result." Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground? Qin Nan was startled. Advertisement. Elder Wang, who was standing beside him, said, "Duan Qing, the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground is the top mystical ground of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. It's filled with danger and fortunate encounters. It's only accessible once every 5 years, and is specifically used to train the princes and princesses." Got it. Qin Nan nodded. According to the third prince, the achievements of the princes in the trial of the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground would affect their chances of competing for the position of the crown prince. It was precisely because of this that the third prince had made a special trip to find him. Qin Nan groaned and asked, "Third prince, how can I help you in the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground?" He was not a member of the royal family of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. How did he enter the mystical ground? The opening of the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground this time is different from the previous ones. Each prince is allowed to invite 2 geniuses to assist him. The third prince explained, "Furthermore, one must possess a cultivation below the Martial Highness realm to enter the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground." Understood. Qin Nan was not in a hurry to agree. Instead, he looked at Elder Wang. Currently, his identity was no longer the same as before. He was now Zhou Bihua's successor, and possessed the Vermilion Bird Sacred Badge. If he were to be involved in the competition to become the crown prince, it would mean that the Vermilion Bird platoon was supporting the third prince. Duan Qing, it's up to you if you want to enter the mystical ground. It won't make any difference to the Vermilion Bird platoon. Elder Wang transmitted his voice, before he continued after a slight pause. This third prince is quite decent in terms of his personality and personality. Platoon leader Zhou has high hopes for him. Besides, I suggest that you go to the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground. There is a tree in the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground, known as the Dragon Abyss Tree. This Dragon Abyss Tree is quite extraordinary. If you are able to pick a Dragon Abyss fruit from the tree and consume it, you will be able to rank up to the Martial Highness realm immediately. Qin Nan was stunned hearing this. Could he rank up to the Martial Highness realm after consuming the Dragon Abyss fruit? He soon calmed his thoughts and began to ponder. Seeing his reaction, Elder Wang, the third prince, and the others remained silent and stared at him in silence. After a while, Qin Nan slowly glanced at the third prince and brought his fists together. Since the third prince is so sincere in inviting me, I shall accompany you to the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground. After pondering for a while, Qin Nan felt that it was necessary for him to take a trip to the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground. Firstly, his cultivation had reached the law-defying martial dominator realm, and he had reached a bottleneck after being baptized by the blood of the Vermilion Bird. It was a great opportunity for him to obtain a Dragon Abyss fruit to help him rank up to the Martial Highness realm. Furthermore, every prince was allowed to invite 2 geniuses to help him when the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground was opened. It would turn into a grand gathering of geniuses. How could he miss out on such a grand gathering? As for the matter of reviving the blood-winged Vermilion Bird, he had plenty of time to do so. The third prince was startled after hearing this. Before his eyes were filled with joy. With Brother Duan Qing's help, it's possible for us to rank in the top 3 in the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground. Top 3, huh? Qin Nan let out a calm smile. Brother Duan Qing, I'm sorry that I didn't prepare enough gift. I have a copper plate here, which I found by chance 10 years ago. I've tried a lot of methods, but I still couldn't find the origin of this copper plate. I'll give it to you as a gift. The third prince took out a copper plate from his neck. The copper plate was around the size of a thumb, emitting a green glow with an ancient aura. Xiao Qi was stunned when she saw this. She said, "Third brother, this is you." The third prince glared at him and stopped Xiao Qi from speaking. Despite his reluctance, he still handed the copper plate to Qin Nan. "Third prince, this gift is too valuable, I can't accept it." Qin Nan immediately shook his head. "No, you have to accept it." Before he could finish, he was interrupted by the third prince, who said in a serious tone, "Even though I, the third prince, am the weakest among the princes, thus I don't have much to offer. However, as a genius of the Vermilion Bird platoon, how could I mistreat you when you're willing to come with me to the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground?" Alright, I'll accept it." Qin Nan nodded his head with a hint of admiration in his eyes. It went without saying that he did not care about the copper plate, but he was quite pleased with the third prince's attitude toward him. However, as Qin Nan held the copper plate in his hand, a rare occurrence took place. The copper mirror in his divine sense began to buzz, as if it was aware of something, causing it to emit countless glows. What's going on? Qin Nan was startled. Why was the copper mirror behaving like this all of a sudden? What's wrong? The third prince and the others blurted out after seeing Qin Nan's strange expression. It's nothing." Qin Nan was multitasking as he observed the scene taking place in his divine sense. He brought his fists together and said, "Third prince, I have something to attend to later. Why don't you tell me the time and place and I'll head there myself?" "Sure, here's my badge. Come to my place in 3 days, I'll hold a feast for you." The third prince handed a badge to Qin Nan. Qin Nan took the command medallion and chatted with the third prince for a while. Then, the third prince and the fourth prince left. Qin Nan glanced at their departing figures and went to the second floor of the cultivation hall. He then unleashed the copper mirror that was behaving strangely in his divine sense. The icy female voice appeared once again. Chapter 543. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 545. Everyone's whereabouts. Since Qin Nan had obtained the mysterious copper mirror, he had never seen it so excited. Even when he was in danger, it had not lent him a hand. What exactly was this tiny copper piece, to make the copper mirror so excited? Whoosh! Access. The copper mirror flew out from Qin Nan's divine sense and floated before him, emitting a blue glow. Its surface was covered in runes, which slowly transformed into a pair of blue eyes staring at Qin Nan. Even though it was only an illusion, the icy aura felt like it had traveled across time and space. Give it to me. The woman's voice was icy cold and carried a dignified tone that couldn't be disobeyed. Qin Nan raised his eyebrows. He did not feel pleasant after hearing the tone as he snapped, "Come on, the thing is in my hands. Can't you at least speak normally if you want to get it? What benefits do you want? Just say it," the woman said coldly. The entire second floor of the cultivation hall was covered in a thin layer of frost at some unknown time. "What I want." Qin Nan was startled, as he did not expect the copper mirror to say such a thing. However, on second thought, since the copper mirror had a mysterious background and was interested in the copper piece, he might as well trade it for some benefits. Previously, whenever Qin Nan was in trouble, the copper mirror would ask for the chaos chi. "The only thing I'm worried about is the whereabouts of Princess Miao Miao, Tang Qinshan, and the others." Qin Nan did not lack anything now. He had even become Zhou Bihua's successor and mastered the art of the immortal vermilion bird, allowing him to improve rapidly. If that was the case, how were the others doing in the upper district's eastern continent? Qin Nan asked without hesitation. "Copper Mirror, do you know how Tang Qinshan and the others are doing in the upper district's eastern continent?" The copper mirror fell silent for a moment, before the icy female voice could be heard once again. "Qin Nan, you should think about it carefully. There are very few opportunities for me to take the initiative to give you benefits. I've already thought it through." Qin Nan nodded without hesitation. There was a trace of surprise in his eyes as he asked, "Can you really do it?" "Nonsense." The cold female voice of the copper mirror uttered the word. The illusionary eye transformed into a giant hand that grabbed the copper piece from Qin Nan's hand and merged it with the copper mirror. Following it, the surface of the copper mirror emitted countless mystical rays. Suddenly, a scene appeared in front of him. In the picture there was a huge mountain. Within the mountain, spiritual qi had transformed into dragons, and immortal flowers were blooming. In the middle of the mountain there was a young girl. She was tall and slender, and wore a long purple dress. Her black hair was like a waterfall, and her facial features were exquisite. Coupled with her big, cunning eyes, she looked like a naughty fairy. "She's the princess." Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. He had only been separated from Princess Miao Miao for less than 3 months, but she had already grown to be 10 years old. "She's currently in the Mu clan of the Eastern Continent. She's not in any danger, and her status is higher than yours," the icy female voice said. "Mu clan of the Eastern Continent?" Qin Nan was startled. Where was this place? The icy female voice did not explain further. The scene on the copper mirror changed all of a sudden. The immortal mountains in the image were no longer there. In their place was a vast sea. However, this sea was strangely blood-red. Countless demonic beasts were rolling about in the sea. A huge boat was sailing in the ocean. At the bow of the boat stood a man holding a black saber. He was none other than Tang Qinshan. Behind Tang Qinshan stood the Duanmu Mountain Lord and the others. They are currently in the chaotic blood ocean. The four great factions have yet to track them down. They are currently training themselves to improve their cultivations. Among them, Tang Qingshan's cultivation will rank up to the martial sacred realm in no time. The icy female voice said. Rank up to the martial sacred realm. Qin Nan was startled. If Tang Qingshan were to rank up to the martial sacred realm, he would no longer be an ordinary martial sacred realm cultivator. His strength would surely be outstanding too. Furthermore, with Tang Qingshan's rank up to the martial sacred realm, they would be able to accumulate more strength in the eastern continent of the upper district. The scene on the copper mirror continued to change. The ocean had disappeared, replaced by an icy mountain. Inside the icy mountain, Gong Yang sat with his legs crossed. The martial spirit floating behind him had ranked up to the 6th grade D rank. Gong Yang, the successor of the 9 symbolic words. He has now joined the Tao-seeking mountain and became the top inner disciple. The Tao-seeking elders have high hopes for him. The icy female voice said. This. Qin Nan wore a strange expression. He did not expect this Gong Yang to have infiltrated the Tao-seeking mountain. Following this, the light continued to flicker. Sima Kong had joined the trading alliance. His status in the headquarters was on par with Lu Jian's, granting him a bright future. Zhao Feng had acquired some kind of succession, allowing him to join the Wanxiang Pavilion and become one of the top 3 inner disciples. Long Hu had become the 99th batch platoon leader of the Black Tortoise platoon. Well done. Qin Nan blurted out with excitement. The 4 great factions have been pressuring us continuously. Now, everyone around me has successfully settled down in the eastern continent and grown stronger. One day, when the time comes, we will surely gather together and shatter the Tao-seeking mountain. Shatter the 4 great factions. For a moment, Qin Nan's heart was in turmoil, unable to calm down. He wasn't fighting alone. He was working hard and struggling. Instead, he had a group of people accompanying him. They were moving forward bravely. By the way, where's the Death Emperor? Qin Nan's eyes flickered coldly as a sudden thought crossed his mind. He is currently in White Tiger City. He has been invited by the first prince and is currently with him. The icy female voice said. The first prince? Qin Nan was startled. A moment later, his lips curled upward. As the saying went, enemies are bound to meet. It seemed like the Death Emperor was here for the Dragon Abyss mystical ground, right? That's all. The cold female voice uttered these words as the light from the copper mirror flew back into Qin Nan's body, leaving him in a deathly silence. Qin Nan was startled. Before he blurted out, Copper Mirror, if I provide you with enough chaos chi, can you help me locate the person? Copper Mirror, Qin Nan asked a few questions in a row, but the Copper Mirror showed no reaction. He could not help but let out a wry smile. This Copper Mirror was extremely resourceful, to be able to locate the person's whereabouts with ease. The only unfortunate thing was that the Copper Mirror was not fully under his control. Forget it, I'm satisfied knowing the whereabouts of the people. It's all thanks to the fragment that the third prince gave me, which allowed the Copper Mirror to show itself. It seems like I'll owe him a favor then, Qin Nan mumbled to himself. If that's the case, I'll try my best to help him at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. I can also teach that guy a lesson. Qin Nan's eyes flickered coldly. Chapter 544. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 546. The royal residence Qin Nan chose to read instead of cultivating in 3 days. Read the full text. The second floor of the cultivation hall was filled with ancient books, which recorded the history of the upper district's eastern continent, as well as the strange happenings. Within 3 days, Qin Nan had finished reading all of the books, giving him a better impression of the upper district's eastern continent. I wonder what this Mu clan of the eastern continent is. According to the Copper Mirror, This Mu clan is quite impressive. I should ask Senior about it when he returns. Qin Nan mumbled to himself and proceeded to the first floor of the cultivation hall. He discovered that Xue Meng and the others were still cultivating, thus he did not want to disturb them. He greeted Elder Wang and left. Although Qin Nan's flesh of the Martial Highness realm was unable to tear the rift apart, thus he could only fly. Took him a total of 8 hours to arrive at White Tiger City. Upon seeing the magnificent White Tiger City, Qin Nan remained calm as he displayed his badge and entered the city. Time to go to the palace. Qin Nan quickened his pace. The royal family of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom lived in the palace. The palace was further split into the outer palace, the middle palace, and the inner palace. The outer palace housed the princes, princesses, and the army. In the middle hall, various powerful officials and some experts of the imperial family resided. As for the inner palace, it was where the emperor resided. Qin Nan displayed the badge of the third prince and successfully entered the palace. As soon as he entered the palace, his eyes flickered with astonishment. The path before him was wide and filled with countless flowers and grasses. Palaces rose and fell one after another, and groups of armored warriors were patrolling the area with an imposing aura. As expected of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom's palace, it's like a city within a city. Most importantly, even my left eye of the divine god of battle is unable to see through the grass, trees, bricks, and tiles. Qin Nan soon calmed his thoughts. According to the ancient books, it was said that this White Tiger City was a half-monarch weapon, whose power surpassed that of a sacred weapon. However, he did not expect this White Tiger City to be so powerful that it completely exceeded his expectations. Following this, Qin Nan soon arrived at a huge lake under the guidance of the servants. The lake was known as the Lake Phoenix, which covered an area with a circumference of over 400 li. Its water was fiery red, giving it a fascinating appearance under the sunlight. With Lake Phoenix as the center, numerous mansions were built around it. Some of the mansions were dazzling with gold and jade, while others were shining with the light of treasures. There were a total of 36 mansions with 36 different styles. Qin Nan arrived before one of the buildings, which covered an area with a circumference of 10 li. Both the bricks and the walls were crimson red, giving it an inconspicuous appearance. Qin Nan knocked on the door. Not long after, an old man with a face full of wrinkles opened the door. The old man glanced at Qin Nan with a hunched back and said with a hoarse voice, "Young man, our third prince has high hopes for you. I hope you won't let him down." Qin Nan nodded and entered the building. After taking a few steps, he halted in his tracks and said with a calm smile, "Senior, your 8th layer Martial Highness realm cultivation is quite impressive. You would be considered a top cultivator in the eastern continent of the upper district. I hope you can give me some guidance in the future." The old man's eyes flickered with astonishment. This young man was able to see through his cultivation? Such a powerful eye technique. "Ha ha, Cultivator Duan Qing, this is Uncle Lin. He's been taking care of me since I was young." The third prince walked out after hearing the voice and burst out laughing. "Come, follow me. The other genius is coming too." Each prince was allowed to bring 2 geniuses into the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. Apart from Duan Qing, the third prince had found another genius. Sure. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with interest as he followed the third prince to the hall. In the center of the hall, there was a round jade table. On top of the jade table, there were all sorts of delicacies. The aroma was intoxicating. Apart from that, there were also a few jade bottles. Inside those jade bottles, there was a type of golden wine. On the other side of the jade table sat a young man with short hair. He was wearing the long robe of the White Tiger platoon. His eyes were sharp, as if they were going to see through everything. The young man did not even glance at the third prince and Qin Nan as they entered the hall. Peak Martial Dominator Realm, a 5th grade D-ranked martial spirit, not bad. Qin Nan glanced at the young man and nodded his head slightly, before he sat down on the table. The third prince raised his cup and said with a smile, "You two are outstanding geniuses. I'm very happy to be able to receive your help. I'll drink this cup first." As soon as the third prince finished the cup, the young man said in a cold tone, "Third prince, as the host, you shouldn't just focus on drinking. Didn't you tell me that you've invited a super genius? Today I would like to meet this super genius and find out who he is." The young man turned his head around while speaking, as his eyes emitted a godly glow. Bang! Qin Nan remained still, allowing the godly glow to land on his body. Apart from his clothes being burned, his shoulder was perfectly fine. What a strong body! The young man squinted his eyes. The third prince's eyes flickered with displeasure, but he continued to wear a smile. "Cultivator Yincheng, why are you so excited? It's my fault for forgetting to introduce him to you. Allow me to introduce him to you. This is the successor of Platoon Leader Zhou, the 99th batch platoon leader of the Vermilion Bird Platoon, Cultivator Duan Qing." Duan Qing? Yincheng's eyes widened slightly. Currently, in White Tiger City, or even the eastern continent of the Upper District, Duan Qing's name was known by most people, especially the geniuses of the White Tiger Platoon, who were extremely familiar with his background. What a surprise, the third prince managed to invite Cultivator Duan Qing here. Yincheng soon collected his thoughts as a cold grin appeared on his face. "Cultivator Duan Qing, as the successor of Platoon Leader Zhou, I believe your cultivation is quite outstanding, right? Today I would like to see it for myself. What do you think, fellow Duan Qing?" Qin Nan did not respond, but glanced at the third prince with a hint of inquiry. The third prince wore an unpleasant expression as he transmitted his voice. "This Yincheng was purposely arranged by eldest brother to stay close to me. As I've made a deal with him in front of the people of the White Tiger Platoon, I can't chase him away myself." The meaning behind his words was quite obvious. Qin Nan immediately came up with a plan as he picked up a cup and said calmly, "You're Yincheng, right? We're all here to serve the third prince. Why do you insist on having a friendly duel with him?" "Ha ha ha, how is that a friendly duel? We're only having a friendly duel, not a duel of life and death. Cultivator Duan Qing is the successor of Platoon Leader Zhou. Don't tell me you don't have the guts to do something like that? So soon?" Yincheng purposely paused and prolonged his tone. "Are you scared now?" If the third prince had invited other geniuses, he would not have reacted in such a manner. However, the person before him was different, as he was Duan Qing. Back at the White Tiger Platoon, Vice Platoon Leader Su Ao had already given the order that every member of the White Tiger Platoon should try their best to probe Duan Qing's cultivation. Anyone who was able to do so would be rewarded handsomely. Yincheng was not stupid. Since Duan Qing was able to defeat Mu Qingye and catch Platoon Leader Zhou's attention, his cultivation was surely outstanding. That being said, he was confident that Duan Qing would surely attack him after mocking him. Even though he was no match against Duan Qing, he could easily probe Duan Qing's cultivation with his capabilities. "Piss off." The cup in Qin Nan's hand flew out from his grip, resulting in a sharp whistle. "A mere cup? You want me to piss off too? But—" Yincheng leapt into the air as his aura of the peak martial dominator realm burst out. He grabbed at the cup with his claws. However, he could no longer utter the word laugh that was about to come out of his mouth. It was replaced by great astonishment. Such a terrifying force. Chapter 545. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 547 Past Events, White Tiger Golden Sky Technique. In the blink of an eye, Yincheng reacted by uttering a roar. A pair of illusionary claws were ignited on his back, covering his arms like armor, causing the strength of his arms to skyrocket, allowing him to block the attack with brute force. Quick update: the website is refreshing with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most, please leave a good review. That was fast. Despite that, his figure was still knocked over 10 steps backward, causing his arms to feel numb. The eyes of the third prince flickered with excitement. Duan Qing was indeed extraordinary to be chosen as the successor of that senior. As the saying goes, when heroes are gathered at the same table, a toast must be given 3 toasts. Brother Een, as a genius of the White Tiger platoon with an extraordinary talent, a true hero. Allow me to give you a second toast. Before Een Cheng could collect his thoughts, Qin Nan blurted out as he grabbed another cup and flicked it with his finger. Qin Nan was not stupid. This Een Cheng had provoked him for no reason, and it was obvious that the third prince was up to something. If that was the case, he would not mind teaching him a lesson. Bang! As soon as the wine cup was tossed out, it produced a sonic boom, which was even more terrifying than the first cup. Duan Qing Yu, Een Cheng's expression changed tremendously. What did he mean by when heroes are gathered at the same table, a toast must be given 3 toasts? This Duan Qing was obviously trying to pick on him. Martial spirit unleashed. Although Een Cheng was cursing in his heart, he could not afford to be distracted in the nick of time. 5 golden rays were emitted from his back, together with the illusionary figure of a giant made of rocks. Break! Een Cheng uttered a roar. The giant made of rocks raised its arm and slammed it onto the wine cup with a terrifying force. Bang! An explosion could be heard as the wine cup shattered into countless shards that slammed into the surrounding walls. However, a spell formation sprang up on the walls, blocking the shards from hitting the walls. However, Een Cheng's figure was knocked over 10 steps backward. What a terrifying body! At this moment, Een Cheng's expression was completely replaced by shock. The strength of the first cup of wine was already frightening enough. He didn't expect the second cup to be even more frightening. Qin Nan was sitting at the table, chatting merrily and wittily. With just 2 casual wine cups, he was able to force Qin Nan to retreat. This level of strength, perhaps only their current battalion commander would be able to do so. Fellow Taoist Een Cheng, now that you've finished 2 cups, there's still 1 left. Qin Nan picked up a wine cup and flicked it with his finger. Boom! Torrential flames actually surged out from the wine cup, and it transformed into the image of a phoenix. Its imposing aura surged as it soared into the sky, and it surged throughout the entire hall. You! Een Chingshen's expression changed greatly, and his heart trembled. This fellow clearly knew that he was no match for him, yet he still didn't intend to let him off. For a moment, a trace of regret rose in Een Cheng's heart. If he had known earlier, he would have just quietly been his own spy. There was no need to test Duan Qing. However, there was no chance for him to regret. Defense of the martial spirit. Emperor weapon. Een Cheng immediately unleashed his martial spirit and a mystical weapon to their maximum potential, forming 2 impenetrable barriers in front of him. Bang! Following an explosion, a boundless fiery glow was fired downward, shattering the Emperor weapon into pieces, while Een Cheng's martial spirit was knocked backward. Love Go Xiao Se Kuich! A cry of agony could be heard as Een Cheng's figure was sent flying. Uncle Lin, send the guest out. The third prince calmly said. Sure. With a flicker, Uncle Lin reached out his hand and lifted Een Cheng's figure like he was grabbing a little chick, before tossing him out of the hall. The noisy hall fell silent. Cultivator Duan Qing, I did not expect your strength to be so powerful. I'm impressed. Thank you, Cultivator Duan Qing, for teaching Een Cheng a lesson for me. Here's a toast to you. The third prince raised his cup and emptied it without waiting for Qin Nan's reply. Qin Nan took a sip. The wine was some kind of mystical wine, with a sweet taste and a soft texture. After finishing the drink, Qin Nan let out a sigh and said, Third Prince, let's not beat around the bush. There are some things that you can tell me now. Qin Nan had no intention of taking part in the competition between the princes for the crown prince's position. His only concern was why the third prince was the only one who had come looking for him out of all the princes. After all, he was the inheritor of Zhou Bihua now. No matter if it was his identity, status, or cultivation, they were both extraordinary, and he ought to be the target of numerous princes to curry favor with and rope him in. All right. The third prince let out a sigh as if he had just recalled something. Duan Qing, I'm sure you're wondering why I'm the only one who dares to approach you. It's because of the White Tiger Platoon. White Tiger Platoon. Qin Nan squinted his eyes as Su Ao's figure appeared in his mind. Due to Su Ao, he did not have a good impression of the White Tiger Platoon. Therefore, he had attacked without hesitation when Yin Cheng had provoked him. Duan Qing, your conflict with Vice Platoon Leader Su Ao of the White Tiger Platoon is not a big deal overall. The real reason is because of the current platoon leader of the White Tiger Platoon. Qin Nan frowned after hearing the third prince's words. Qin Nan was not familiar with the current platoon leader of the White Tiger Platoon, but it went without saying that his cultivation was extraordinary. The current platoon leader of the White Tiger Platoon is Di Fengyun. He is also the strongest genius of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, with an 8th grade D-ranked martial spirit. The third prince glanced at Qin Nan and said, "He has the same identity as you, being the successor of platoon leader Zhou. However, he betrayed platoon leader Zhou and joined the White Tiger Platoon, becoming the youngest platoon leader of the White Tiger Platoon." Qin Nan was startled. The current platoon leader of the White Tiger Platoon was the one who had betrayed the Vermilion Bird Platoon? Why did he betray the Vermilion Bird Platoon? Qin Nan soon calmed his thoughts and asked, "I'm not sure about the details, but I did hear that platoon leader Zhou was not willing to teach Di Fengyun the art of the immortal Vermilion Bird, causing Di Fengyun to be extremely displeased. The White Tiger Platoon took the opportunity to form an alliance with Di Fengyun, which resulted in Di Fengyun betraying the Vermilion Bird Platoon." The third prince slowly explained while staring at Qin Nan's expression. "I see." Qin Nan nodded his head as his eyes flickered with excitement. He finally understood the reason. The reason being that Di Fengyun had betrayed the Vermilion Bird Platoon because he had failed to acquire the art of the immortal Vermilion Bird. Now that Qin Nan was Zhou Bihua's successor, it went without saying that he would be targeted by Di Fengyun, which meant that he would be targeted by the White Tiger Platoon. This was the reason why the other princes did not dare to recruit him. "What about you, third prince?" Qin Nan soon calmed his thoughts. Even though this Di Fengyun was the top genius of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom and the platoon leader of the White Tiger Platoon, he did not panic. Was Di Fengyun stronger than the 4 great factions? Besides, it was only a matter of time before he surpassed the 8th grade D-ranked martial spirit. As for Di Fengyun's intention to deal with him, he would just have to deal with it accordingly. Me? The third prince's eyes flickered with astonishment. He initially thought that Qin Nan would panic after hearing the news, but he did not expect him to be so calm. The third prince calmed his thoughts and let out a sigh. "Duan Qing, to be honest, I'm the weakest among the princes. Eldest brother has the support of the Trading Alliance, second brother has the support of the White Tiger Platoon, and ninth brother has the support of most of the ministers and the Black Tortoise Platoon. I once tried to gain Uncle Zhou's support, but he no longer participated in the competition for the Crown Prince's position." Qin Nan remained silent. "Therefore, I have no choice but to conceal my strength and pretend to be weak." Hearing this, Qin Nan nodded slightly. The leisure inn was one of the third prince's methods. Shao Qi had been helping him to keep an eye on the geniuses, collect information and establish connections with them. The third prince shook his head and said, however, for some reason, my father has placed great importance on the trial of the dragon abyss mystical ground, resulting in the geniuses of the White Tiger platoon and the Black Tortoise platoon being recruited by the other princes. Upon hearing this, Qin Nan let out a calm smile and said, So, you have no choice but to choose me? No, I'm here because I want to win. A golden glow was emitted from the eyes of the third prince, as a terrifying suppression was emitted from his body. Qin Nan was slightly startled. He was quite familiar with the suppression, as he had once felt it from the Death Emperor. However, the suppression from the third prince was extremely weak. I'm not sure about the other princes, but this third prince is surely extraordinary. Qin Nan nodded his head. Chapter 546. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 548. Talent Gathering Hall. The eyes of the third prince and Qin Nan glistened as they turned their heads toward the source of the light. For more information, visit www. In the residence, Uncle Lin swiftly grabbed the light, which turned out to be a letter. He took a glimpse at it and said in a low tone, Third Prince, the first prince is holding a feast at the Talent Gathering Hall today. He has invited all the princes, princesses, and geniuses to attend the feast. Got it. The third prince wore a calm expression. Qin Nan could not help but exclaim in his heart after seeing this. The third prince's status in the eyes of the other princes was indeed not high enough. Even the letter was thrown at him without any etiquette. Let's continue drinking, the third prince said to Qin Nan with a smile. Sure. Qin Nan nodded his head as the two continued to drink. Following this, Qin Nan and the third prince discussed various strange happenings, as well as the matter regarding Qin Nan of the lower district. Now that the four great factions are trying to hunt Qin Nan down, anyone who is willing to hand over the information regarding Qin Nan's friends will be rewarded with 8 sacred Dao weapons, and the chance to become progenitor Wen Dao's disciple. I'm quite interested to see how talented this Qin Nan is, to be able to stir such a great chaos without saying a single word. The third prince exclaimed. Qin Nan wore a calm expression as he smilingly said, I'm interested too. The two continued to chat. Even Qin Nan could not help but be impressed by the third prince's ability as a prince. His knowledge and experience were a lot better than his own. The night soon turned dark. The entire palace, including the walls and tiles, emitted a faint golden glow, causing the entire place to be brightly lit. Qin Nan and the third prince headed to the Talent Gathering Hall together. The Talent Gathering Hall was a place for the royal family of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom to receive the geniuses. Other than that, there was also the Assembly Supreme Hall and the Assembly Sage Hall, which respectively welcomed martial saints and martial saints. After chatting with the third prince in the afternoon, Qin Nan had a clearer understanding of the Eastern continent. Martial saints were existences that were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. The Martial Highness realm was considered one of the top cultivators in the four great factions, or some rogue cultivators had reached this realm. As for martial emperors, they were considered average fighters. Most of the geniuses had reached this level. Apart from that, Qin Nan was also familiar with the geniuses of the four great factions. Some of them had 8th grade D-ranked martial spirits, while others had reached the Martial Highness realm. However, there were not many geniuses with 8th grade D-ranked martial spirits in the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, and Di Fengyun was the only one with one. The eastern continent of the upper district is a magnificent place. My current strength is only at the peak martial dominator realm. I must acquire the Dragon Abyss fruits at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground to improve my strength and achieve the Martial Highness realm as soon as possible. Only when one becomes a venerable can one participate in the struggle between the four forces. Qin Nan thought to himself as his thoughts became clearer and clearer. Not long after, the two arrived at the talent-gathering hall. From afar, the talent-gathering hall looked like a giant tortoise sitting with its legs crossed, covering an area with a circumference of a few hundred li. Its figure was emitting a faint purple glow, as if it were an illusion. According to the rumors, the talent-gathering hall was built with the appearance of the kingdom protector Black Tortoise. After passing the guards and entering the talent-gathering hall, a wave of heat swept toward their faces. There was no main seat in the hall, but two fiery jade tables were placed on both sides of the hall, with waitresses and chefs standing at the tables. They were preparing the ingredients and preparing the dishes on the tables. At the tables sat the princes, princesses, and the geniuses they had invited. As soon as the third prince and Qin Nan entered the hall, they immediately received gazes from the crowd. Third brother, you're here. Come, sit beside me." Among the over 30 princes in the hall, only a few of them rose from their seats and offered the third prince a seat in a friendly manner. The third prince was ranked third among the princes, thus he was supposed to be one of the 3 princes on the right, but he was currently ranked 8th on the left. 15th prince, 19th prince, and 31st prince. After hearing the message from the third prince, Qin Nan immediately came to a realization and glanced at the 3 princes. This time, he did not sense the mysterious golden aura inside the third prince's body, as he easily peeked through them. They were the first layer Martial Dominator Realm, half Martial Dominator Realm, and third layer Martial Dominator Realm respectively. Furthermore, the geniuses beside them were either from the Black Tortoise Platoon or Rogue Cultivators, whose cultivations had only reached the 5th layer Martial Dominator Realm. Qin Nan and the third prince exchanged glances with one another, before Qin Nan took a step backward and positioned himself behind the crowd, making it difficult for the others to notice him. It was something they had agreed upon before coming here. The third prince would be in charge of handling the situation, while Qin Nan would be in charge of observing the enemies. Qin Nan scanned his surroundings and frowned slightly. He discovered that a few of the princes had brought along 3rd layer Martial Highness Realm cultivators, and even 5th layer Martial Highness Realm cultivators. Were they planning to suppress their cultivations before entering the Dragon Abyss mystical ground? Apart from that, Qin Nan did not see any sign of the first prince, second prince, or 9th prince. The first prince is here. At that instant, a yell could be heard from outside. The atmosphere of the place intensified. The princes and geniuses immediately turned their heads toward the direction of the voice, including Qin Nan. They could only see a middle-aged man with a square face and an imperious appearance wearing a golden robe approaching them. Each step he took caused the hearts of the crowd to explode silently. Beside the middle-aged man stood a black-robed cultivator. Qin Nan's left eye flickered thunderously upon seeing the black-robed cultivator, as his lips curled upward into a cold grin. "Death Emperor, it's been a while. Big brother! Big brother! Big brother, you're here!" The princes rose from their seats and brought their fists together to greet him. This was the benefit of being the first prince, who had the greatest seniority on the surface. The first prince waved his hand, signaling the crowd to be quiet, before he spoke in a respectful tone. "Since the brothers have brought the geniuses here today, there's no need to be so courteous. Let's eat and drink to our heart's content. By the way, it seems like 9th brother and 2nd brother are unable to make it in time. The 9th prince is here." At that instant, another yell could be heard coming from outside the door. At that instant, the entire hall fell silent, as the eyes of the princes flickered slightly. The expression of the first prince flickered coldly, but soon returned to normal. "Big brother, I'm sorry that I'm late." The 9th prince saw you hurried over and said with an apologetic look, "How could I miss the gathering of the geniuses? Therefore, I've finished my business and came here in advance. Glad you're here, glad you're here." The first prince wore a sincere smile, before he glanced at the young man beside the 9th prince and asked in a curious tone, "And this is, I forgot to introduce him to Big Brother. Allow me to introduce him to everyone. This is the platoon leader of the 99th batch of the Black Tortoise Platoon, Long Tion. Song Yu pointed at the young man with 2 bumps on his forehead, and said with a calm smile. The crowd was startled. This 9th prince was indeed capable, to be able to recruit the platoon leader of the Black Tortoise Platoon. Haha, greetings, princes and geniuses. Long Hu brought his fists together without looking at the crowd in the eye. 9th brother, let's not waste any time. Let's take a seat. The first prince waved his hand and sat on the first seat on the right. As soon as he sat down, he asked in a curious tone as if a sudden thought had crossed his mind, "By the way, where's 3rd brother?" The crowd fell into a dead silence after hearing the words. Chapter 547. Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Here's an interesting novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 549. Long Hu injured among the princes. It was common knowledge that the 3rd prince and the 1st prince did not get along well. Love little say, full reading, 79 XS-brother, I'm here. The 3rd prince was the first to break the silence with a calm expression. Why are you sitting there? The 1st prince pretended to be shocked and waved his hand. Come here, you're the 3rd prince. You should be sitting below, brother. Where's your manners? The other princes remained silent. At that instant, the 9th prince said with a calm smile, 3rd brother is right. You should be sitting below him. The words startled many of the princes. Were the 9th prince and the 1st prince teaming up? That was not the case. However, the 3rd prince had been participating in many battles recently, which had benefited him greatly, and had even been complimented by their emperor father. The 1st prince and the 9th prince were not stupid either. It was highly possible that the 3rd prince had been concealing his strength for the past few years in order to accumulate his strength. However, the 3rd prince had remained quiet for many years, thus he was not an ordinary person. He let out a smile and said, "Thank you for inviting me. I've always been a carefree person. Brother did mention that it's a joyous occasion for all the brothers and geniuses to gather here tonight. Sigh, since 3rd brother has made up your mind, forget it. I'll leave the seat below to you." The 1st prince let out a sigh. The 9th prince Song Yu would not let it go so easily, who suddenly said, 3rd brother, I heard that the genius you've hired is Duan Qing from the Vermilion Bird Platoon? After the words were spoken, the crowd once again shifted their gazes toward the 3rd prince. In particular, a few of the princes had invited the geniuses of the White Tiger Platoon. Their eyes flickered coldly. Currently, the White Tiger Platoon had already given out the order to find out Duan Qing's background. The 3rd prince looked indifferent as he transmitted his voice to Qin Nan. Duan Qing, I've been concealing my strength and biding my time for many years. Now I've been advancing step by step. I've long been prepared to make a comeback. You don't have to worry about me. If the other party provokes you, just do as you should. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility for you. No problem. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. The words of the 3rd prince were exactly what he wanted to hear. Without hesitation, he took a step forward and appeared before the crowd, before bringing his fists together and said, Greetings, princes and geniuses. I'm Qin Nan. There are almost all the books you want to read. It's much more stable than the average website, and it updates faster. It's all text without advertisements. He's Duan Qing? TSK. I didn't even notice him earlier. The crowd's attention was fixed onto Qin Nan's figure. A few geniuses and princes with eye techniques scanned Qin Nan's figure, trying to figure out what was going on. However, the outcome left them disappointed. The 1st prince's expression changed, becoming slightly gloomy. He had not even been informed that the third prince had received Duan Qing's help. How did this ninth prince know about it? Song Yu had no idea that this Duan Qing was the Qin Nan he had been searching for. He brought his fists together and said with a smile, "It has only been 2 months since our last meeting at the Vermilion Bird Platoon, but you've managed to improve so quickly and become the successor of platoon leader Zhou. I'm impressed, but—" He paused for a moment. The crowd squinted their eyes. "Cultivator Duan Qing, since platoon leader Zhou is fond of you, you must be quite outstanding. If that's the case, I'd like to invite platoon leader Long Tian from the 99th batch of the Black Tortoise Platoon to have a wine contest with you. How does that sound?" Song Yu slowly said. The crowd was startled, before their gazes toward Duan Qing were filled with disdain. They did not expect Song Yu to invite Duan Qing to have a wine contest with Long Tian. The wine contest was a competition between the geniuses in the royal family of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. 2 geniuses would hold a cup in their hands and use various martial arts to push the cup in front of the other genius. If the other genius failed to catch the cup, he would have to drink the wine instead. Normally, at the banquets of the geniuses and the princes, there would be a wine contest between the geniuses to determine who was better. The first prince glanced at Song Yu with a hint of admiration after hearing this. The 9th prince was the first to make his move against the 3rd prince. He was more than happy to see the 2 tigers competing against each other. As a matter of fact, Song Yu was quite helpless. He had no intention of competing with the 3rd prince. He was only testing Duan Qing's strength at the request of the platoon leader of the Black Tortoise Platoon. After all, Duan Qing had appeared out of nowhere like a comet. The factions of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom were extremely interested in the contest. How powerful was this Duan Qing? Was he comparable to Di Fengyun in the past? A wine contest with me? Qin Nan's eyes flickered with a strange look as he said, "I'm fine with it." Hearing this, the surrounding princes shuddered and turned serious. Meanwhile, Long Hu was immersed in his conversation with a princess, thus he was unaware of the situation taking place in front of him. Song Yu wore an awkward expression as he transmitted his voice, "Long Tian, let's have a wine contest. If you win, I'll introduce you to my sister." "Introduce me to your sister." Long Hu collected his thoughts and rose from the ground while uttering a roar. "Who dares to have a wine contest with me? Bring it on. Grandpa Long will take on 2 at once." The roar was filled with a dragon's might, causing the hearts of the crowd to tremble. The geniuses of the White Tiger Platoon, in particular, were more aware of the roar, causing their expressions to change slightly. It appeared that this platoon leader of the Black Tortoise Platoon, Long Tian, was extremely powerful. The eyes of the first prince flickered. Such a powerful genius should be more than enough to deal with Duan Qing. "It's him." Song Yu straightened his face. He was extremely familiar with Long Tian's strength. Even he was no match against him. Since the platoon leader of the Black Tortoise Platoon had asked him to do it, he would rather ask Long Tian to suppress Duan Qing. It would be a great help to him. Long Hu stared with his eyes open wide. His eyes widened when he saw the grinning face of Qin Nan. Qin Nan's smile grew wider as he brought his fists together. "So you're cultivator Long Tian? I'm Duan Qing, I've heard a lot about you. I hope cultivator Long Tian will be willing to teach me a wine contest later." The figures of the surrounding princes tensed as they gathered their focus. They were eager to see who was stronger between the 2 geniuses. "You!" Long Hu almost spat out the wine in his mouth. Why was this asshole here too? Besides, he was asking him to have a wine contest with Qin Nan? Although Long Hu had managed to acquire a fortunate encounter at the Black Tortoise Platoon, allowing his cultivation to skyrocket to the half-martial highness realm, allowing him to defeat any first-layer martial highness realm cultivators. However, Long Hu clearly knew how insane Qin Nan was. The reason being that Qin Nan had overcome a 10,000 li tribulation at the ninth city. That was 10,000 li. What's wrong? Asked Song Yu with a frown. What's wrong? What the F***? K. Long Hu clenched his teeth furiously, as he had the urge to slap Song Yu's face. This guy was quite a nice guy. Why did he have to set him up at such a crucial moment? The surrounding princes were aware that something was not right, causing their eyes to be filled with doubts. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with excitement. He had never fought against Long Hu before, thus he immediately said, "Long Tian, show me what you got." "Show my ass." Long Hu felt extremely gloomy. The outcome of the wine contest between him and Qin Nan was obvious. He would surely lose. If he were to lose, where would his face be? How was he supposed to pick up girls in the future? How would the princess he had hooked up with see him in the future? A thought crossed Long Hu's mind all of a sudden, causing him to become excited as he uttered a roar. "Duan Qing, have a taste of my ultimate move." Long Hu's figure rose into the air and floated in midair. He picked up a cup and aimed it at Qin Nan, before firing it at him with a terrifying aura. At that instant, the surrounding geniuses were astounded. The aura alone was enough to intimidate them. Would Duan Qing be able to resist the attack? At that instant, a rare occurrence took place. Bang! An explosion took place inside Long Hu's body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. The imperious aura from before vanished as he fell from the sky in a weakened state. The princes and the geniuses were dumbfounded. Why would this guy's body explode all of a sudden? Even Qin Nan was stunned on the spot. Crap, crap. Long Hu held his chest and said with a painful expression, "I've yet to fully recover from the poison I was inflicted with a while ago, and it's taking effect again. I won't be having a wine contest anymore." Saying this, Long Hu sat down with his legs crossed and his body emitted a glow as he began to heal his wounds. The crowd was dumbfounded. Chapter 548. Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second Divided by Small? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 550. Beating a Genius with a Cube. A while ago. He was poisoned? You are the 99th batch platoon leader of the Black Tortoise platoon. How could you not be cured after being poisoned? How fake is your acting? Qin Nan was left speechless after seeing his reaction, who shook his head. It seemed like his dream of having a duel with Long Hu was not going to happen. Marshmallow-79XS. Song Yu collected his thoughts, whose expression stiffened under the strange gazes of the crowd. He immediately transmitted his voice to Long Hu. "What the hell are you doing? Why aren't you having a wine duel with him?" Long Hu's grievances were ignited after hearing Song Yu's voice transmission. "Are you King kidding me? That guy is Duan Qing. Aren't you trying to embarrass me by asking me to have a wine duel with him? How could I possibly stand a chance against him?" Long Hu scolded Song Yu through voice transmission, leaving Song Yu in a daze. He is very strong? It took Song Yu quite some time to collect his thoughts. He clearly knew Long Hu's strength. He was almost undefeatable among those below the Martial Highness realm. Why would he be so scared of Duan Qing with such a strong cultivation? Are you kidding me? If you want to fight, go King fight. Long Hu snapped. Song Yu's face instantly turned unsightly. He did not believe that Duan Qing was that powerful. Even if he was, with Long Hu's current cultivation, he would at most be at a disadvantage. Why would he pretend to be sick and take the initiative to avoid the duel, just to embarrass him? However, despite his doubts, Song Yu did not dare to scold Long Hu. The reason being that the platoon leader of the Black Tortoise platoon had set his eyes on Long Hu, thus he still needed his help at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. "I've been looking for Qin Nan for a few months, but I still can't find any trace of him. It's going to be a joke if the genius that I invited to the gathering of the princes was scared of the duel. If father were to know about this, I wonder what he would think of me." Song Yu mumbled to himself. Upon having this thought, his gaze toward Longhu became icy. Quick update: the website is refreshing and has few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most. You must give it a good review. If this Duan Qing was not as powerful as Longhu had mentioned, he would definitely settle the score with Longhu. Song Yu took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He cupped his hands and said, "Princes, I'm really sorry. We've encountered some problems on our side. I'm afraid we won't be able to participate in this wine rowing competition." Sorry. Even though Song Yu was apologizing profusely, there was still an awkward expression on her face. Many of the surrounding princes looked at him with disdain, but they did not show it. The first prince's eyes flickered with disdain as he said, "We can all understand. After all, he was poisoned. It's normal for him to be unable to cure himself in a short period of time." When he said these words, the first prince deliberately emphasized the word lethal poison. Song Yu's expression turned even more awkward, but he was unable to retaliate. The first prince was secretly pleased. However, teaching the ninth prince a lesson was only one of his goals. For now, he still needed to teach the third prince a lesson. He immediately glanced at the other three princes. The three princes nodded their heads and transmitted their voices to the geniuses beside them. Since Cultivator Long Tian is unable to join Cultivator Duan Qing in the wine rowing competition, I'll be your guest then. One of the geniuses rose from his seat and brought his fists together. The genius was one of the geniuses of the White Tiger platoon on the 11th prince's side. Qin Nan had glimpsed at him before. He possessed a 9th-layer martial dominator realm cultivation and a 4th-grade D-ranked martial spirit, which was quite impressive. The third prince glanced at the 11th prince, who was chatting with a smile while raising his cup. Qin Nan remained calm as he prepared to accept the challenge. At that instant, two other geniuses of the White Tiger platoon rose from their seats all of a sudden, and one of them yelled, "As everyone knows, Cultivator Duan Qing is platoon leader Zhou's successor. Platoon leader Zhou has only recruited 2 successors so far. One of them is our platoon leader, and the other is Cultivator Duan Qing. It's obvious that the talent of Cultivator Duan Qing's martial spirit is on par with our platoon leaders. We alone are no match against such a genius. If that's the case, the 3 of us will join hands and propose a toast to him as a sign of respect." The genius spoke at a rapid pace, as if he were chanting a Buddhist chant. The princes subconsciously nodded their heads as if they were possessed. Qin Nan raised his eyebrows. Cultivator Duan Qing. In the blink of an eye, the 3 geniuses of the White Tiger platoon leapt into the air without giving Qin Nan any time to react. Behind them, a 4th-grade D-ranked martial spirit and 2 5th-grade D-ranked martial spirits appeared and grabbed a wine cup. One of the geniuses' martial spirit was some kind of poisonous plant, which emitted a green glow that merged with the wine in the cup. "Catch the wine!" The other 2 geniuses uttered a roar and unleashed the power of their martial spirits, causing the wine cup to emit a blinding glow that fired in Duan Qing's direction with a terrifying aura. The crowd was dumbfounded. How vicious of the White Tiger platoon! The third prince became enraged and slammed his hand onto the table, shattering it into pieces. Everyone knew that the combined strength of the 3 martial spirits was enough to severely injure even a 1st-layer martial highness realm cultivator trying to receive the cup of wine. Even if Duan Qing were to receive the wine, he would be at a disadvantage, thus he would have to drink the wine. It was obvious that the wine was poisoned. What would the consequences be if he were to drink it? The 3 of them working together was not fair at all. How vicious! Third brother. The first prince's eyes flickered with joy as his palms were engulfed in a glow. He then waved his hand in the air, signaling the third prince to calm down. Meanwhile, the surrounding princes and geniuses collected their thoughts. Their faces were filled with astonishment. Although the White Tiger platoon had gone overboard this time, how was Duan Qing going to resist the wine? In the blink of an eye, the wine cup was fired in Qin Nan's direction with a terrifying force. Bang! A loud crash took place, causing the hearts of the crowd to skip a beat. The eyes of the three geniuses of the White Tiger platoon widened. The reason being that the wine cup was being held in Duan Qing's hand. Qin Nan was holding it firmly with a single hand, without taking a single step backward. When the crowd saw this, their eyes were filled with astonishment. Wasn't this Duan Qing's flesh a bit too terrifying? Song Yu's initially gloomy expression stiffened. It seemed like Long Hu had not lied to him. This Duan Qing's strength was immeasurable. All of a sudden, an invisible aura burst out from the hall. Even the black-robed cultivator beside the first prince raised his head. He could only see Qin Nan's eyes turn cold as a flame was ignited on his palm, before he hurled the wine cup forward. Bang! A powerful flame was ignited on the wine cup, resulting in a formidable aura. Bang! The wine cup in mid-air shattered into 3 pieces, which struck the chests of the 3 geniuses. Bang bang bang! Before the 3 geniuses could react, a tremendous force struck their figures, sending them flying and slamming into the walls of the hall, resulting in a series of loud thuds. "I'm sorry, I won't be drinking the wine of the White Tiger platoon." Qin Nan waved his hand, causing the flame in his hand to disappear with a calm expression. Chapter 549. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a fascinating novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 551. A drinking contest with the martial emperor defeating 3 geniuses of the White Tiger platoon with a single cup of wine. Advertisement. For more information, visit www. How strong exactly was this Duan Qing? What a surprise! A mere sky-scorching ancient kingdom has such an undefeatable martial dominator. Interesting. The black-robed cultivator beside the first prince mumbled to herself as she glanced at Qin Nan with great interest. This person was none other than the Death Emperor. The Death Emperor had decided to assist the first prince as he was aiming for the Dragon Abyss fruit on the Dragon Abyss tree. As Jiang Bailan's spirit was a lot stronger than he had imagined, he would need to combine the Dragon Abyss fruit with a few hundred other herbs to refine a forbidden medicine. Jiang Bailan's soul would be annihilated if she consumed this forbidden medicine. Initially, he was not interested in the feast hosted by the first prince. In his opinion, the geniuses of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom were nothing worth mentioning. They would not pose any threat to him at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. However, Duan Qing's appearance had caught the Death Emperor's attention. The Death Emperor clearly knew that among the 10th-layer martial dominator realm cultivators, there were undefeatable martial dominators and law-defying martial dominators. Duan Qing was clearly an undefeatable martial dominator realm cultivator. Ha ha ha, I did not expect cultivator Duan Qing to be so powerful, defeating 3 geniuses of the White Tiger platoon with ease. As expected of the successor that platoon leader Zhou has his eyes on. The first prince collected his thoughts and burst out laughing, breaking the silence. However, when this smile entered the ears of the crowd, there was an additional trace of depression. In addition to the first prince, everyone felt the same way. It was normal for Duan Qing to be powerful, but how was he this powerful? Could it be that Duan Qing was actually comparable to Di Fengyun? Duan Qing, this is the Imperial Palace, not the Vermilion Bird platoon. You've injured them without any hesitation and disregarded the rules. You're looking down on our sky-scorching ancient kingdom. The 11th prince stepped forward all of a sudden and snapped at Qin Nan. What a way to disregard the imperial laws! The third prince's eyes turned cold as he said, "The three of them attacked together without any warning, and even poisoned the wine. What is the meaning of this? If you're not satisfied, you can report it to the torture hall." The surrounding princes were stunned. This was the first time they had seen the third prince so angry. For a moment, they were all stunned by his aura. Even the 11th prince was no exception. Qin Nan scanned the crowd and calmly said, "Are the other geniuses interested in having a wine contest with me?" Looking around, no one made a sound. The gloomy look on Song Yu's face had long since disappeared. In its place was a look of relief. Luckily, Long Hu had faked being poisoned. Otherwise, it would have been extremely embarrassing if he was sent flying. After all, what happened today would spread to the ears of countless people. Is there no one else? Let's continue the banquet then. Qin Nan glanced at the first prince casually and was about to leave. The first prince was aware of Qin Nan's gaze, causing him to feel extremely embarrassed. He immediately calmed his thoughts and blurted out, "Wait!" Hearing this, the surrounding princes immediately glanced at the black-robed man standing beside the first prince. Many of the princes were curious about the identity of the black-robed man. Qin Nan halted in his tracks and said, "Is there anything the first prince would like to say?" "Of course." The first prince raised his head slightly and said in an imperious tone, "How could we end the wine contest so quickly? Cultivator Duan Qing, your strength is so outstanding that many of the surrounding geniuses are no match against you. I'm afraid you're feeling quite bored. Coincidentally, I've met a genius by chance. Her name is Cultivator Jiang. Why don't you let her accompany you and have a friendly wine contest? What do you guys think?" The first prince glanced at the crowd. The princes followed his suggestion, and even clapped their hands and cheered. "Sounds good to me. This Cultivator Jiang must be an outstanding talent to be able to catch the first prince's attention. Haha, thanks brother. It seems like there's going to be an exciting duel today." Seeing the reactions of the surrounding princes, the third prince knew that the outcome had been decided. He immediately transmitted his voice to Qin Nan, "Duan Qing, since the first prince dares to speak, this black-robed man must be extraordinary. Be careful." After a brief pause, he added, "Don't force yourself, just try your best." Duan Qing had already displayed his strength, and now, the first prince still dared to send the black-robed man to the duel. This meant that the black-robed man's cultivation was surely outstanding. Qin Nan's lips curled upward. All of this was what he wanted. He wanted to have a fair fight with the Emperor of Death without attracting the attention of the Emperor of Death. Then, he would be able to vent his anger. Wait. The first prince wore a smile as a sudden thought crossed his mind. "Third brother, how about this? I'm afraid a simple wine contest isn't exciting enough. Why don't I take out a bottle of 5 Flowers Godly Brew, and you take out your precious bottle of heart-uniting liquid as the prize? Whoever loses will have the bottle of wine." How generous of him! The princes were astounded. Everyone knew that their father loved wine, thus the princes were willing to share it with him to prove their worth. The 5 Flowers Godly Brew mentioned by the first prince and the heart-uniting liquid in the third prince's hand were both precious wines. Even 10 Emperor weapons were not enough to trade for a bottle of them. Even the first prince and the third prince were reluctant to drink such fine wine. They would only take it out when their imperial father came. It seems like Big Brother is confident in winning the wine contest. The same thought crossed the minds of the princes. The third prince naturally noticed this as well, and his expression became solemn. If he were to accept the bet and lose, it would be a great loss. If he didn't agree to it, Duan Qing's impressive feat of sweeping away the 3 geniuses of the White Tiger platoon would cause his reputation to plummet. If word of this were to spread, he would be viewed as cowardly and not a match for the first prince. It was no longer the time to keep a low profile. Accept his bet. Qin Nan transmitted his voice to the third prince. The third prince was startled. He raised his head and saw Qin Nan's calm expression, as if the victory was already within his grasp. His gaze immediately reminded the third prince that although he had been concealing his strength for the past few decades, he was actually the same as well, as if the victory was already within his grasp. It was better to be a noble than a general. If he were to succeed, he would have to do it in one go. If he were to lose, he would have to start all over again. The hesitation in the third prince's heart dissipated as he waved his hand and said, "If Big Brother is so interested, how could I be impolite? Let's use the heart-uniting liquid and the 5 flowers godly brew as the prize." The other princes held their breaths and subconsciously straightened their bodies. The wine contest was no longer a simple contest. It was the first battle between the first prince and the third prince. The first prince's eyes flickered with joy. He was extremely confident in the wine contest. Even though Cultivator Jiang's cultivation was only at the half Martial Highness realm, she was able to resist a second-layer Martial Highness realm cultivator. Even the butler of the peak Martial Highness realm in his residence had said that her strength was immeasurable. No matter how strong Duan Qing was, could he be stronger than Cultivator Jiang? Cultivator Jiang, I'm counting on you. If you win, I'll give you the heart-uniting liquid. The first prince transmitted his voice to the Death Emperor with a respectful tone. Heart-uniting liquid? Why would I be interested in such a low-level wine? Jiang Bailan's eyes flickered with disdain. Before a thought came to her mind, however, it seems like I haven't had any wine for the past few thousand years. Forget it. Let's broaden the horizons of these mortals and show them the might of a great emperor. Having this thought, Jiang Bailan rose from the ground and walked to the center of the hall. She halted in her tracks and raised her head, revealing a pair of phoenix-like eyes staring at Qin Nan with a disdainful look. Duan Qing, right? You're not too bad, barely worthy enough to be my opponent. How about this, if you use your full strength, I'll give you a handicap of 3 moves. Chapter 550. Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 552, Displaying the Might of the Left Armile, let you have 3 moves first. The surrounding princes were stunned. This cultivator Jiang was so scornful facing Duan Qing. Advertisement. For more information, visit www. The third prince frowned. Either the person dared to be so scornful was ignorant, or they were confident enough. It was obvious that this person belonged to the latter. As the third prince had thought, the Death Emperor was confident enough to do so. He had taken over Jiang Bailan's flesh and altered his destiny to reclaim the Martial Highness realm. He had long achieved the undefeatable Martial Dominator realm, and with his capabilities as a martial monarch, how could this Duan Qing stand a chance against him? Not to mention 3 moves, he was willing to let him have 10 or even 20 moves. However, he did not want to be so showy. Let me have 3 moves first? Qin Nan squinted his eyes. It seemed like this Death Emperor had assumed that he was only an ordinary undefeatable martial dominator, and had yet to see through his true cultivation. However, how could Qin Nan reject such a great offer? In the blink of an eye, Qin Nan reacted and yelled, as expected of Cultivator Jiang, whom the first prince has invited. Since Cultivator Jiang is willing to give me a handicap of 3 moves, why would I reject it? For the sake of Cultivator Jiang's powerful aura, this cup shall be named Devouring the Mountains and Rivers. Qin Nan grabbed a cup and unleashed his aura all of a sudden. Bang! The cup was fired, which transformed into a phoenix uttering a cry, resulting in a magnificent sight. The surrounding princes were astounded. Devouring the mountains and rivers, how impressive! The terrifying aura alone was enough to cause one to not dare to accept the cup. A love go little say chew petty tricks. A look of disdain appeared on the Emperor of Death's face. She raised her arm, and countless ghostly spirits lit up on her palm. These ghostly spirits formed a ghostly claw that swiped at the void. The hand of death. Everything fell silent as it was summoned. Whoosh! Even the imposing aura of the phoenix strikes the heavens would weaken in the face of such death. In the blink of an eye, the aura of the vermilion bird striking the heavens dissipated, leaving only a tenth of its original strength. The Death Emperor grabbed the cup with ease once again without being knocked backward. All of the princes and geniuses were shocked. How did fellow Taoist Jiang neutralize such a powerful attack so easily? This person is only a half-martial highness. Why does he possess such terrifying battle strength? Haha, good reads! The first prince laughed out loud. He was in high spirits as he scanned the surroundings. He had the aura of looking down on all living beings. The third prince's face darkened. He quietly clenched his fists but remained as motionless as a mountain. Duan Qing, this is the first cup. The Emperor of Death raised his wine cup and crushed it with his fingers. The wine spilled everywhere as if he was silently mocking them. As expected of Taoist Jiang, your strength is unfathomable. If that's the case, then I'll have to embarrass myself. This is the second cup. Qin Nan grabbed a wine cup as his aura changed tremendously. The vermilion bird spits out godly flames, turning them into wine. He spat out the phoenix soul-consuming fire from his mouth, which flowed into the cup like sticky liquid and merged with the wine, forming the fiery phoenix wine. The vermilion bird spreads its wings, delivering the wine to the hero. A giant vermilion bird was summoned from Qin Nan's figure, which uttered a cry and grabbed the wine cup with its beak. Its wings flapped vigorously as it charged toward the Death Emperor with a destructive aura. Delivering the wine. The surrounding princes and geniuses could feel their hearts beating rapidly upon witnessing this. If it were them, they would not be able to take the cup of wine. Even if they were able to, their flesh would be burned by the fiery spiritual wine, resulting in severe injuries. The Death Emperor's eyebrows shuddered as his expression changed slightly. How nice of this Duan Qing. His vermilion bird flames possessed the will of a soul-consuming spirit, which was extremely effective against the Tao of Death. Humph! A mere vermilion bird is not worthy enough to deliver wine to me. The Death Emperor pretended to be disdainful, but he secretly clenched his teeth and executed a forbidden technique, causing his strength to skyrocket. Following this, with a thought, countless streams of death chi were gathered in his body, which transformed into a sigh. The sigh of death. Bang! It was as if time had frozen in the surroundings. The crowd could only see the vermilion bird that had delivered the wine to the Death Emperor began to weaken rapidly, as if its life force had reached its limit. In the blink of an eye, the vermilion bird had disappeared. The cup of wine fell from the sky and shattered into pieces, causing the ground to burn fiercely, causing the entire hall to be illuminated by the flames. Such a move had defeated him once again. Very well, a mere vermilion bird is not worthy enough to deliver wine to me. Cultivator Zhang's cultivation is peerless. The first prince let out a roar as he could no longer conceal the joy in his eyes. Third brother is in trouble. Third brother has lost big time this time. This cultivator Jiang is so terrifying. I wonder how first brother managed to recruit her. The surrounding princes also came to their senses and started whispering to each other. Many of them looked at the third prince with pity in their eyes. It was obvious that Duan Qing was no match against cultivator Jiang. In that case, the third prince would lose the heart-uniting liquid after 3 moves. Not only was the heart-uniting liquid precious, once the news about it was made known to the public, those who supported the third prince would be greatly disappointed, causing their morale to drop significantly. The third prince remained silent with a calm expression after hearing the crowd's words. The Death Emperor placed her hands behind her back and stared at Qin Nan with her charming eyes from under the black robe as she said in a disdainful tone, "Even though your strength is not bad, you're still an ant in front of me. I've already given you 2 moves. Hurry up and use your 3rd move. Don't dawdle and waste my time." The surrounding princes and geniuses were astounded, as they glanced at the Death Emperor with respectful gazes. Meanwhile, the first prince was even more excited. This was the power of an expert. Her words were filled with disdain. So what if she was Zhou Bihua's successor? She was nothing in front of cultivator Jiang. The first prince could not help but burst out laughing after having the thought of defeating Duan Qing. However, little did they know that the Death Emperor's hands under the black robe were trembling slightly as she uttered the words. She was forced to execute the sigh of death for the 2nd move, resulting in a great loss. However, for the sake of her dignity, she had no choice but to clench her teeth and endure it. "Damn it, once this is over, I'll ask the first prince to compensate me." Although the Death Emperor was cursing in her heart, her face remained expressionless as she maintained her imperious aura. "As expected of cultivator Jiang, I'm impressed by your strength. Since when did our sky-scorching ancient kingdom have such a genius? I believe everyone here is curious as well. If that's the case, I still have a little trick up my sleeve. I'll use it today to remove your black robe and reveal your true appearance." Qin Nan suddenly spoke. The words immediately changed the atmosphere of the place, causing the crowd to be curious. Who exactly was this mysterious cultivator Jiang? What did she look like under the black robe? A disdainful look appeared on the Death Emperor's face. "Trying to remove her black robe with your weak cultivation? In your dreams. I'll give you a toast on behalf of everyone." Qin Nan suddenly reached out his left arm and grabbed a cup. A terrifying force gradually awakened from an ancient slumber within his left arm. If anyone were to take a closer look, they would discover that the space around Qin Nan's left arm began to distort slightly. This was the left arm of the divine god of battle. The Death Emperor frowned as her eyes emitted a black glow as her left eye of death scanned Qin Nan's left arm. Following a glimpse, her expression changed tremendously. How was this possible? Chapter 551. A Genius Will Remember Love in a Second/Little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 553. The Dispirited Emperor. Damn it, this guy has been hiding his cultivation. The Death Emperor's expression darkened. A love go little say Chu, please go to this book. For more information, visit www. According to her calculations, Duan Qing's cultivation was at most at the undefeatable martial dominator realm, thus she could easily defeat him. However, judging from the aura, this guy had mastered some kind of forbidden technique, allowing him to execute his strongest attack. However, I'm the Death Emperor. How could a mere ant like you stand a chance against me? I'll burn more of my lifespan this time. No matter how terrifying your forbidden technique is, you won't be able to defeat me. The Death Emperor mumbled to himself as the gloomy expression on his face disappeared, replaced by a hint of disdain. It was not that she was looking down on Duan Qing, but it was her confidence. It was the confidence and pride of the Emperor Wu. The crowd was aware of the tense atmosphere, and immediately realized that the third attack would be the deciding move, as Duan Qing was about to execute his strongest attack. Even the first prince clenched his fists tightly at that instant. A mysterious force in Qin Nan's left arm was awakened, causing him to hold the cup tightly. What a pity! I can only control a tiny bit of the force of the left arm of the divine god of battle. Otherwise, the Death Emperor would have fallen here today. Qin Nan let out a sigh as he quickly adjusted his thoughts and wore a grin, however, even if the Death Emperor doesn't die today, she will still have to pay a great price. Whoosh. Qin Nan immediately made his move. His figure floated in mid-air as he aimed the cup at the Death Emperor. Reading in full, a formless and terrifying aura rippled out. The entire hall began to tremble slightly, causing the fiery jade tables to tremble slightly. Nice. The third prince rose from the ground and clapped his hands as he uttered a roar, giving the crowd a great fright. It was important to have a strong aura at the moment of victory. What do you mean by nice? He was pretending to be a god and playing tricks. Oh Duan Qing, no matter how strong you are today, you are still no match against me. The Death Emperor placed her hands behind her back and raised her head, looking at Qin Nan with a disdainful look. When the first prince and the others saw this scene, their spirits shook, and the uneasiness in their hearts disappeared. That's right. With Taoist Zhang's peerless cultivation, how could a mere Duan Qing compare to her? Fellow Taoist Jiang will definitely win the wine contest. Damn it, however, what the first prince and the others did not know was that the Death Emperor under the black robe was cursing in her heart with a gloomy expression. At this time, he had already begun to activate the forbidden technique, burning his lifespan to accumulate the aura of death. He was burning his lifespan. A person's lifespan was always limited. Every bit that was burned was a bit lost. It was extremely difficult to recover. Who would have thought such a genius would appear in the eastern continent of the upper district, causing me to waste a significant amount of my lifespan? Once this competition is over, I must get enough benefits from the first prince. The Emperor of Death made up his mind. However, a thunderous roar could be heard from above all of a sudden. Cultivator Jiang, take this. The Emperor of Death was given a great scare, who immediately raised his head. The surrounding princes and geniuses instinctively raised their heads too. The crowd could only see Qin Nan's formidable aura changing all of a sudden, which filled the entire hall with a terrifying aura. Buzz buzz buzz. The slightly swaying hall began to vibrate vigorously at that instant. The fiery jade tables in front of the princes and geniuses began to shake violently, causing the wines placed on them to fall to the ground, resulting in a series of clattering noises. If Qin Nan was described as a ferocious tiger before, Qin Nan was now a peerless god of slaughter. Heavenly accumulating strike. A cold grin appeared on Qin Nan's face. A terrifying absorption force burst out from the cup in his hand, as the phoenix soul-consuming fire, the sky thunder, his will, his law-defying primordial spirit, etc., were all accumulated in the cup, which transformed into a beam of light that flowed into the magical wine, turning it into a glowing magical wine. Although the attack was not as powerful as his strongest slash, it was still extremely terrifying. Bang! In the nick of time, Qin Nan flicked his finger and fired the cup forward. Ripples appeared in the surrounding void due to this terrifying aura, spreading out in all directions. The princes standing behind the Emperor of Death were dumbfounded. It felt like a godly dragon was charging toward them with a terrifying tornado behind it, as if it was trying to destroy the heavens and earth. F***K. The Emperor of Death's expression changed tremendously, as he was given a great fright. The aura that this Duan Qing unleashed was not his strongest, as he had concealed his true strength. Such an attack could easily kill a second-layer Martial Highness, or even injure a third-layer Martial Highness. Was this still a F***King wine contest? This was simply trying to take his life. In the nick of time, the Emperor of Death reacted by burning his lifespan once again, which transformed into a tremendous aura of death. God of Death! The Emperor of Death uttered a raging roar as the aura of death was emitted from his body, which transformed into an illusionary giant figure. The figure stood tall between the heavens and earth, emitting a formidable aura that ruled over death. In the blink of an eye, as soon as the God of Death showed up, the wine cup collided with his figure. The tremendous impact left cracks on the god of death's figure, which was on the verge of shattering. That was close. The Emperor of Death's forehead was covered in cold sweat. She had underestimated her opponent this time. Luckily, the god of death was able to resist the force of the cup. Otherwise, the remaining force of the cup would have knocked her backward. If she were to be knocked backward, she would have lost the wine contest. Once she lost the contest, where would her dignity as a martial monarch be? Having this thought, the Emperor of Death's heart was filled with anger. This was only a wine contest, not a ***king duel of life and death. How dare this Duan Qing use such a powerful attack? How many years of his lifespan had he sacrificed? However, before he could unleash his anger, a shocking sight took place. Bang! All of a sudden, the wine cup shattered. From within the wine cup, the spirit wine that seemed to be shining with brilliance actually exploded with an extremely frightening power. Bang! The defensive formations on the ceiling of the talent gathering hall were destroyed by the explosion as soon as they were activated. The remaining force was like a bloody mouth that was opened in the depths of the ocean, tearing at the Emperor of Death. What the F***K? The Emperor of Death was utterly terrified, who blurted out curses. He did not expect it to be a technique within a technique. The true power lies within the wine in the cup. Burning lifespan. Burning. Burning. A sense of danger rose within the Emperor of Death's heart, which immediately awakened him and burned his lifespan in exchange for the Qi of Death. God of Death. Countless streams of Qi of Death were unleashed, which transformed into an illusionary figure. As soon as the figure of the God of Death appeared, it was shattered into pieces by the terrifying explosion, while the remaining force struck the Emperor of Death's figure before he could react. Bang! The Emperor of Death's figure was sent flying like an arrow being fired, leaving a giant hole in the wall of the talent-gathering hall. It left as quickly as it had appeared. At that instant, the explosion dissipated, returning the talent-gathering hall to its calm state. With a glance, the magnificent talent-gathering hall no longer existed, as the place was now in ruins. Chapter 552. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a great novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 554, Managing Internal Affairs and External Affairs. Just a moment ago, Cultivator Jiang's aura was incredibly imperious as she looked down on Duan Qing. I like this kind of website the most. You must give me a good review. Visit, yes. In the blink of an eye, Duan Qing's attack sent Cultivator Jiang flying like an arrow. Wasn't the change too fast? Duan Qing, well done. The third prince suddenly woke up with a start. His eyes were filled with a strong sense of joy. He had found the right person after all. Duan Qing had given him a great surprise. The surrounding princes and geniuses collected their thoughts. Their gazes toward Duan Qing were now filled with respect. Gasp! Powerful! This Duan Qing is too powerful. I'm not sure if an ordinary third-layer Martial Highness Realm cultivator would be able to resist the attack. Third brother is going to be impressive this time. These princes were all discussing animatedly as they looked at the third prince with a hint of jealousy in their eyes. They were aware that Duan Qing had made a name for himself, but they had not approached him as they were worried about Di Fengyun. However, judging from Duan Qing's performance, it was highly possible that he was the next Di Fengyun that platoon leader Zhou was nurturing. If that was the case, the third prince would have made a great profit. Brother! The third prince's gaze landed on the first prince's figure as he calmly said, "Since we've made a deal, shouldn't you give me the 5 flowers godly brew now?" The first prince's figure shuddered as he collected his thoughts. His eyes were filled with a hint of unwillingness and disappointment. He did not expect Cultivator Jiang to not be Duan Qing's enemy. The first prince opened his mouth, clenched his teeth, and nodded. Third brother, keep this 5-flower divine nectar well. He flicked his finger and fired a storage bag into the third prince's hand. It's getting late, I'll be leaving first. The first prince could feel his face burning as he was aware of the crowd's gaze. He pretended to be calm as he waved his hand and walked away. As he arrived at the pile of rocks, he halted in his tracks and harumphed coldly, before he left the place without paying any attention to the Death Emperor. The Death Emperor climbed out from the pile of rocks and spat out a mouthful of dust. She immediately saw the first prince's departing figure, causing her initially gloomy mood. Advertisement, Duan Qing. The Death Emperor uttered a roar and jumped up from the ground. Her eyes emitted an icy aura. She was pissed. It's so infuriating. How dare this asshole? Edited by Lifer reading, edited by Lifer, finger translation? Emperor God. Not only that, she had lost Asen Qing's. Hers monarch, year what? Cultivator drinking, wine drinking, martial wine cultivator hand. I didn't expect fellow Taoist Jiang to be so fond of martial arts. I'm not that talented, and I only know a few forbidden techniques. Normally, I wouldn't show them to others easily, but fellow Taoist Jiang's sincerity has moved me. Today, I might as well show you everything I know. After saying this, Qin Nan waved his hand and grabbed a wine cup. A magnificent aura burst out from his body. The Emperor of Death was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Who the hell wants to compete with you? She would need to spend at least 3 months and use a large amount of spiritual medicine to recover from the wine competition just now. Just you wait. After saying this, the Death Emperor withheld his anger and left the place at a great speed, as he was afraid that Duan Qing would attack him again. Love go little say, Netwka when Qin Nan saw her in such a sorry state, he was secretly pleased. At the same time, he felt a little regretful. It was only a wine competition, as he would not allow Duan Qing to execute his strongest attack. Otherwise, he would surely kill the Death Emperor today. That being said, the Death Emperor would never expect this Duan Qing to be Qin Nan's disguise, who had purposely targeted him. Otherwise, he would definitely vomit blood on the spot. Meanwhile, the surroundings of the talent-gathering hall were filled with figures, as a series of synchronized footsteps could be heard. It went without saying that the army was alerted after such a huge commotion. Everyone, I believe that's all for today. Shall we disperse? The third prince stood at the center of the crowd and said. Following his words, the surrounding princes nodded their heads in agreement. At that instant, the third prince vaguely had the aura of a leader, as his words carried enormous weight. Do you know your mistake now? The first ones to leave were Long Hu and the 9th prince Song Yu, but before they had taken a few steps, Long Hu's scornful scolding could be heard, which was heard by many of the princes. Although Song Yu was slightly embarrassed, he was relieved that Long Tian had made the right decision. Otherwise, they would be the ones being humiliated today. Qin Nan and the third prince left the place together. The third prince burst out laughing along the way, indicating that he was in a great mood. Third prince, I have a favor to ask. Qin Nan halted in his tracks and said all of a sudden, Is it possible for the third prince to give the 5 flowers godly brew to me? Duan Qing, you like wine too? The third prince was startled. Nope. Qin Nan wore a smile on his face. It went without saying that he was not a fan of wine. The one who loved wine was Princess Meow Meow. The 5 flowers godly brew was a great wine. If he were to give it to the princess, she would not scold him anymore, right? Upon thinking about the princess, Qin Nan was slightly confused. The princess had constructed the illusionary mirror with him, allowing them to communicate once a month. Why had she not appeared after a few months? Then I won't ask any further here. The third prince waved his hand and threw a storage bag to Qin Nan, before he smilingly said, "It's all thanks to you that I was able to make a name for myself today. Here are the 5 flowers godly brew and the heart-uniting liquid. These 2 jars of wine are great, please take good care of them." The third prince did not forget to remind Qin Nan at the end. Heart-uniting liquid? Qin Nan was slightly startled. He had only asked for 1 jar, but the third prince had given him 2 jars. Qin Nan was about to say something when he saw the third prince shaking his head at him, thus he gave up on the thought and kept the storage bag. This is the difference between people. Look at the Death Emperor, who was defeated by me while serving the first prince. The first prince did not even bother to help him. Now that I've only won a small battle, the third prince is willing to give me the wine without any hesitation. How generous! Qin Nan mumbled to himself. Among the princes, only the third prince dared to approach him, giving him a precious copper plate as a gift on their first meeting. Qin Nan could not help but admit that the third prince had the temperament of an emperor. After returning to the third prince's residence, Uncle Lin brought his fists together toward Qin Nan and expressed his gratitude in a sincere manner, before the third prince immediately said, "Duan Qing, I believe the other factions will soon know that we've made a name for ourselves. There are only 5 days left until the opening of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. We should be careful during this period." In the past, the third prince had been keeping a low profile. Now that he had stepped out into the open and even made a name for himself, the first prince, second prince, 9th prince, and the other princes would most likely make their moves and deal with the third prince as their enemy. Not only the third prince but also Qin Nan. As Qin Nan's identity was related to Di Fengyun, it was extremely sensitive. Furthermore, since Qin Nan had displayed his strength, the other factions would most likely change their tactics to secure a victory at the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. 5 days left? Then, in these 5 days, I will go into secluded cultivation and increase my cultivation base again. Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he said. The Dragon Abyss mystical ground was extremely crowded, and the Death Emperor was involved too. It was a rare opportunity for him to improve his cultivation and try his best to eliminate the Death Emperor in the mystical ground. If you're interested in cultivating, here's my prince's badge. With this badge, you can enter the cultivation grounds of White Tiger City. The third prince murmured as he took out a golden dragon badge. Cultivation grounds? Qin Nan received the badge and was slightly startled. Our White Tiger City has specially constructed a few cultivation grounds with the help of formations. Take a look at this scroll, it contains the information about the cultivation grounds. The third prince tossed a scroll toward Qin Nan and smilingly said, "Got it." Qin Nan received the scroll and nodded his head slightly. The cultivation grounds were most likely similar to the aquamarine wonderland in the 9th city. Let's take a look first. Qin Nan opened the scroll and saw a pattern floating in the air, which introduced the 5 cultivation grounds of White Tiger City in detail. Water Curtain Cave. Constructed by the Water Element Formation, it is divided into 4 types: low grade, middle grade, high grade, and supreme grade. It would cost a few hundred primary stones to cultivate in the low-grade cave for a day. Crimson Flame Mirage. Constructed by the Water Element Formation, it is divided into 4 types: low grade, middle grade, high grade, and supreme grade. Due to the lack of fire element, it would cost 1,000 primary stones to cultivate in the low-grade cave for a day. Qin Nan browsed through the list, and his eyes flickered when he reached the end. This was quite interesting. I'll go cultivate then. Qin Nan put the scroll away. With the third prince's badge, he could cultivate for free for a month, thus he did not need to worry about primary stones. The third prince raised his head slightly as his eyes flickered. Qin Nan immediately understood his intention, causing his eyes to emit a strong battle intent. The third prince was in charge of external affairs, in charge of using his authority to resist the various factions. He was in charge of internal affairs, improving his cultivation to come first in the trial of the dragon abyss mystical ground. Chapter 553. A Genius Will Remember Love in a Second Divided by Small? SegNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 555. Fates intertwined with the starry pagoda. Late at night, White Tiger City was brightly lit. A love go small say, Chu quick update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I like this kind of website the most, please leave a good review, -79. The incident at the Talent Gathering Hall was spread to the ears of countless factions through various channels, resulting in a series of undercurrents in the middle of the night. Spread the word, investigate Duan Qing. This kid has appeared out of nowhere, and possesses a remarkable cultivation. He is our greatest enemy in the trial of the dragon abyss mystical ground. The third prince has been hiding for over 10 years, shocking the world with a single brilliant feat. He is one of our most important enemies in the future. Is there any news from the White Tiger platoon? In the end, many factions chose to wait patiently for the news from the White Tiger platoon. Meanwhile, in a huge palace in White Tiger City. The interior of the palace was like a city, with various places for cultivation. This was the location of the White Tiger platoon. Inside the palace, there was a man sitting in a simple but grand room. The man had a bulky figure, wearing a coat made of beast hide. His hair was fiery red, and his face was covered in scars, giving him an imperious appearance. This man was none other than the top genius of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, Di Fengyun. Platoon leader, this Duan Qing is a malignant tumor. He has no respect for the White Tiger platoon. According to my estimation, his martial spirit is at least 6th grade or 7th grade D rank. If we let him continue to grow, he will become our #1 enemy. Su Ao lowered his head and said. Di Fengyun sat on the chair without saying anything. His eyes were dark, as if he was unmoved. Su Ao's eyes flickered as he slowly said, besides, according to the news, Zhou Bihua has the intention to teach Duan Qing the art of the immortal vermilion bird. Bang! Di Fengyun rose from the ground as a terrifying suppression burst out from his body, as if a ferocious tiger had opened its bloody mouth. Quick update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I like this kind of website the most, please leave a good review. His pitch-black eyes suddenly turned fiery red, as if 2 wisps of flames were flickering within them. Su Ao had worked with Di Fengyun for many years, so he knew that his words had touched Di Fengyun. He took a deep breath and said, Battalion Commander, why don't we send someone there? No need. Di Fengyun waved his hand and said in a voice that sounded like the clanging of steel, since he took Duan Qing as his disciple, he must have made arrangements for his safety. Now is a special time, there's no need to do anything. When the time comes, neither Duan Qing nor Zhou Bihua will be able to stop me. The last word, Dao, exploded in the void like a bolt of lightning from the 9 heavens. Su Ao shuddered. Even after so many years, he still felt fear when facing Di Fengyun. All right, I'm going out. Di Fengyun stood up and withdrew his terrifying aura into his body, making him look ordinary again. Go to the Star Pavilion? Su Ao was slightly stunned. Yes. Following this, Di Fengyun's figure disappeared into thin air. Seeing this, Su Ao shook his head helplessly. Their platoon leader was extraordinary in every way, except for his obsession with martial arts. He would visit the Starry Pagoda every few days to comprehend the martial art. Duan Qing, Su Ao's eyes flickered coldly as he recalled the incident at the martial arts demonstration hall. Someone is already following me in such a short time. Qin Nan walked on the street of White Tiger City while his left eye emitted a thunderous glow. He could see 3 shadowy figures at the corner of the street, which were difficult to detect. The competition for the throne was terrifying indeed. Many factions were involved in it, not daring to let their guard down. However, it's not that easy to follow me. Qin Nan wore a grin as his figure arrived at the corner of the street with a flicker. He immediately transformed into a middle-aged man with a yellowish face with the mortal appearance-changing technique and blended into the crowd. The shadowy figures behind him were astounded as they immediately searched for him. After getting rid of the shadowy figures, Qin Nan recalled the memories in his mind and headed toward the city. The purpose of his trip was to the Star Pavilion. The Star Pavilion was ranked first among the 5 great cultivation grounds of White Tiger City. It was further categorized into 4 different levels of caves, namely low grade, middle grade, high grade, and supreme grade. It would cost 2,000 primary stones to enter the low grade cave a day. Even with Qin Nan's prince's badge, he could only enter the high grade cave for free. As for the supreme grade cave, according to the rumors, there were only 2 of them in total, and only the authorities were allowed to enter them. This Star Pavilion, I hope it won't let me down. Qin Nan halted in his tracks as he arrived before a palace and mumbled to himself. He then withdrew the mortal appearance-changing technique and transformed into his true appearance, before entering the palace. Inside the door was a spacious hall. On the left side of the hall, there was a mysterious light screen. Through this light screen, one could enter the Star Pavilion. That being said, before entering the light barrier, one would have to pay the fee at the front desk and apply for a badge. At this moment, the hall of the palace was packed with people. Many experts were lined up in an orderly manner to pay the fee. Qin Nan scanned the crowd and saw 5 cultivators among the crowd. They had all achieved the Martial Highness realm, and one of them had even achieved the peak Martial Highness realm. Fellow Taoist, is there anything I can help you with? At this time, a beautiful attendant walked over in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. I'm looking for a high-grade cave. Qin Nan took out his prince's badge as he spoke. You're the 3rd prince? The servant was startled. After taking a closer look at Qin Nan, she blurted out as if she had discovered something, Are you Senior Duan Qing? That's me. Qin Nan was startled. Did the servant know him? Our master has told us that if Senior Duan Qing is here, you can head straight to the Supreme Grade Cave without paying any fee. Here is the badge. As the beautiful female attendant spoke, she took out a wooden title plate. On the title plate, 2 large words were written. Number 1. A Supreme Grade Cave? The 2 Supreme Grade caves that were only accessible to the authorities? Qin Nan's eyes flickered with confusion as he said, Your pavilion master? Who's your master? The current First Duke. The servant said in a soft tone, before adding, The master is a member of the first batch of the Vermilion Bird Platoon. I see. Qin Nan immediately came to a realization after hearing this. It turned out that the Starry Pagoda was managed by the First Duke, who happened to be a member of the Vermilion Bird Platoon. After knowing that Qin Nan was coming to the Vermilion Bird Platoon, he gave Qin Nan a Supreme Grade Cave badge. This Vermilion Bird Platoon is indeed powerful. Even the First Duke is one of them, Qin Nan exclaimed in his heart. The royal family of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom was ranked first, followed by the Trading Alliance and the 10 Great Duke. It was obvious how powerful the 10 Great Dukes were. Please thank your master for me. Qin Nan brought his fists together and headed toward the barrier without saying anything else. Since the First Duke had given him a gift, as a junior of the Vermilion Bird Platoon, he had no choice but to accept it. That being said, he would find some time to pay this mysterious First Duke a visit. However, to Qin Nan's surprise, as soon as he stepped into the light barrier, a man wearing a beast-hide coat slowly walked toward him from inside the hall. Chapter 554. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Schwa.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 556. The Starry Rocks on the left and the right. Look, Platoon Leader D is here. Marshmallow 79. Crap, why is he here today? Sigh, it seems like we're going to suffer a loss this time. The entire hall was immersed in an uproar, as the experts wore bitter looks on their faces. Those who often came to the Starry Pagoda to cultivate were aware that Di Fengyun would come to the Starry Pagoda every once in a while. As such, most of the experts would choose their time wisely. After all, resources were limited, thus they would not be able to obtain the resources they needed if they stumbled into Di Fengyun. Di Fengyun showed the badge with an expressionless face and entered the light barrier. Qin Nan had no idea what was happening outside. As he entered the light barrier, his face was filled with astonishment when he saw the scene before him. They could only see a pavilion rising from the ground like a giant pagoda. On top of the pagoda floated several talismans, which glowed brightly like stars. These talismans are no ordinary talismans. It feels like they are connected to the formation inside White Tiger City, causing the pagoda to be filled with qi. Qin Nan scanned the pagoda with his left eye of the divine god of battle. Unfortunately, White Tiger City was a half-monarch weapon, thus he was unable to see anything deeper. The pagoda had a total of 4 floors, which corresponded to the low-grade, middle-grade, high-grade, and supreme-grade rooms. The first floor had the most rooms, the second floor had fewer rooms, the third floor had fewer rooms, and the fourth floor only had 2 rooms. When Qin Nan arrived at the room on the 4th floor, a servant was already waiting for him. She bowed and said, "Master Duan Qing, you're in the left star room. A few hundred years ago, a mysterious expert came to our left star room and left something behind. The master told us to keep an eye out for you, as you might be able to comprehend something." The servant continued, "The Starry River will open 3 times in an hour's time. Master Duan Qing, please don't miss it." "Yes." Qin Nan's eyes flashed, revealing a sharp glint. He had come here because of the Starry River. The Star River was created by a formation in the depths of White Tiger City. It would be activated 3 times a day, and the entire river was made of a type of starstone. This kind of starstone, when placed by one's side, could increase one's perception, spirit, and so on. The benefits were endless. That being said, these starry stones were extremely precious. In the entire river, only 300 of them were real, while the rest were fake. If he wanted to obtain the real star stones, he would have to rely on his eye technique to distinguish them one by one before grabbing them. Even though the left eye of the divine god of battle isn't able to peek into White Tiger City, it should be easy to identify the real starry rocks. Qin Nan's lips curled upward as he took out the badge and inserted it into the eye of the formation. The formation immediately dispersed, revealing a giant door. As he stepped through the door, the formation completely closed, forming a perfect defense. Even a martial Sacred Realm expert would not be able to peek into the room. As soon as he stepped into the room, Qin Nan's figure stiffened. The reason being that he had sensed an extremely familiar aura. Qin Nan held his breath and glanced toward the corner of the room. He could see a line of ancient words carved into the wall. A mere sky-scorching kingdom, not worth mentioning. The words were emitting a terrifying imperious aura, as if the entire sky-scorching ancient kingdom was nothing in its eyes. This aura, Qin Nan's hands began to tremble slightly after reading the words. The aura belonged to the divine god of battle. Referring to himself as old man, combined with the words servant and girl, the person who had come to the sky-scorching ancient kingdom was none other than the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. After the period it took an incense to burn, Qin Nan wore a complicated expression as he mumbled to himself, "A few hundred years ago, the sacred Lord Blue Dragon came to the sky-scorching ancient kingdom and predicted that I would be joining the Vermilion Bird platoon in a few hundred years' time. Thus he notified Senior Zhou Bihua in advance. O sacred leader, did you predict that I would be coming to the Starry Pagoda a few hundred years ago too? Being able to predict what would happen in a few hundred years' time, such a remarkable ability was absolutely terrifying. However, regardless of how powerful the sacred Lord Blue Dragon was, he still chose to defeat his enemies at the Ocean of Death, transforming into the left arm of the divine god of battle and merging with Qin Nan's body. He had transformed himself into a lamp, illuminating Qin Nan's path of cultivation. Don't worry, I won't let you down. Qin Nan took a deep breath and sat down with his legs crossed in the room. His eyes flickered with a sharp gaze. How could he let such a great favor go to waste? It did not matter if it was for himself, for the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, or for the people who had high hopes for him. At that instant, a strange noise could be heard coming from the room next door. Someone is coming to the superior room on the right? Qin Nan was startled, but he soon calmed his thoughts. The person who was able to come to this superior room was no ordinary person. Little did Qin Nan know, Di Fengyun's eyes flickered with astonishment when he saw the glow coming from the room on the left. He was a frequent visitor to the Starry Pagoda, thus it was rare for him to see the glow coming from the room on the left. At least in the past 10 years, he had only seen it 3 times. Who could it be? Di Fengyun frowned. He was in charge of the White Tiger platoon, thus he was well aware of the happenings in the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. The sky-scorching emperor, Zhou Bihua, the first duke, and the others had not made any moves recently. Then, who was the person inside this supreme-grade cave? The progenitor of some other faction? Forget it. Di Fengyun shook his head. It did not matter who it was. After entering the room on the right, Di Fengyun sat down with his legs crossed. His pitch-black eyes were engulfed in flames, which felt like raging magma colliding with one another. His aura was no longer cold and imperious, but filled with a hint of madness. Even after a few hundred years, he still could not forget it. Zhou Bihua, why didn't you teach me the art of the immortal vermilion bird? Why? Time passed bit by bit. Before long, the hundreds of rooms in the stellar pagoda were all shining brightly as they were fully occupied. The entire pagoda fell into a dead silence. Even the sound of a heartbeat could not be heard, as if everyone was holding their breaths, waiting for something to happen. Dang! A loud sound came from the pavilion and entered everyone's ears. The eyes of the experts in hundreds of rooms flickered as they executed a series of mystical eye techniques at the same time. Bang! Far off in the distance, an explosion could be heard, which grew louder and louder. It was as if an army of thousands of men and horses were galloping toward them. It's here. Qin Nan's figure straightened as he stared into the distance with his left eye emitting a thunderous glow. He could only see a huge river formed by thousands of light dots rolling toward the pagoda like a dragon. Each time it rolled, it would produce a shocking explosion, as if countless experts were fighting against one another. These light dots were in the shape of fist-sized rocks, which turned out to be the precious starry stones. At a glance, there were at least a few 100,000 starry stones in the river. He's able to see through it. A grin appeared on Qin Nan's face. With his left eye of the divine god of battle, only 300 starry stones were emitting a brilliant glow that no one was aware of. Attack! Chapter 555. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by little? Here's an interesting novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 557. Intimidating the crowd. The starry river was now open, and there were 300 starry stones inside it. Anyone who wished to acquire them would have to rely on their own capabilities. Full text 79XS. Furthermore, for the sake of fairness, only 100 starry stones could be acquired at a time, and no one was allowed to compete with one another. The first to acquire the starry stones would belong to the person who made the first move. Otherwise, the person would be kicked out of the starry pagoda. The crowd was startled. Why would the owner of the left star superior room make his move when the starry river had just arrived? Before they could react, Qin Nan's giant hand had reached out and accurately grabbed 100 starry stones from the center of the starry river. Crack! At that instant, the starry stones were shattered into pieces. A total of 70 starry stones were shattered, while the remaining 30 starry stones emitted a blinding glow as if some forbidding aura had been removed, resulting in a blinding sight on the starry river. How is this possible? The experts on the starry pagoda stared with their eyes open wide. 30 starry stones? She actually took away 30 renminbi in one go? It should be known that in the past, when competing for star stones, it was already considered very good to be able to grab 10 star stones at once. Do it! The crowd collected their thoughts and summoned giant hands grabbing at the starry river. Love go little say ku, that place. Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he quickly locked onto a spot with no one around. He reached out his hand and grabbed the starry stone. Crack! The starry stones were shattered into pieces once again. Following this, a total of 40 starry stones emitted a blinding glow. When the experts saw this, their expressions changed slightly. 40 starry stones. 40 starry stones. How insane was this guy's eye technique, to be able to grab a quarter of the starry stones in 2 attempts. At that instant, the experts realized that the person inside the left star superior immortal cave was extremely powerful. 2 attempts, each stronger than the previous one. I wonder which progenitor of the room has such an outstanding eye technique? Even Di Fengyun could not help but smack his lips upon seeing this. He had only acquired 20 starry stones after using the white tiger illusion-shattering eyes twice, which was 3 times more than what the mysterious progenitor had acquired. However, while the crowd was still in a state of shock, Qin Nan shook his head regretfully. He had set his eyes on another spot, which also had 40 real starry stones. However, the experts were extremely quick with their moves, thus they were all taken before he could make his move. $70, that's still not enough. I'll have to get more the second time, Qin Nan said to himself. If the experts in the pagoda knew what he was thinking, they would most likely vomit blood from anger. Some of them might not even be able to catch 70 pieces in 2 consecutive days. Not long after, the Star River had completely flowed past, and the 300 star stones in it had all been grabbed. Love go little say, the outside of the pavilion fell silent again. The starry river would open once every 2 hours, 3 times a day. Let's try out the effects of these starry stones first. Qin Nan withdrew his thoughts and grabbed a starry stone. He placed it on his palm and calmed his thoughts. Following this, the starry stone emitted a gentle glow that entered Qin Nan's body, causing Qin Nan's figure to turn transparent as a mystical aura was emitted from it. Nice stuff. Qin Nan's mind shuddered. In just a short period of time, it felt like he had been enlightened, as if he had solved all his problems. Qin Nan made up his mind to grab as many starry stones as he could during the second time the starry river opened. An hour was gone in the blink of an eye. Following a loud crash, the experts who were immersed in their cultivation were awakened from their slumber. Qin Nan's eyes sprang open too. Rumble! Rumble! From the depths of the distance, an explosion resounded once again. An incomparably resplendent river of light with an extraordinary aura surged over. All the experts present were startled and unleashed their eye techniques at full power. Inside the right star superior room, Di Fengyun's eyes were like the eyes of a white tiger, emitting a ferocious glow, as if they were able to penetrate everything and scan the entire starry river. None in the first zone, the second zone, and the third zone, Di Fengyan quickly thought. It was a common method that everyone knew, to split the starry river into 50 zones and eliminate them one by one. He would target the zone that had the highest chance of having the most starry stones. The 8th zone. Di Fengyan's figure shuddered as his aura surged, summoning a giant hand that reached out rapidly. At this moment, a loud boom could be heard as a giant hand appeared from the left star supreme grade Immortal's abode. It made a grabbing motion toward the tip of the river of stars. Due to the outstanding performance of the left star superior room, it immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. The first zone? Di Fengyan was startled. He had already observed that the first zone had a very low chance of having any starry stones. Even if there were any, there would only be a few of them. In addition to him, the other experts were startled too. They had also observed the first zone, but there was no sign of any starry stones. Could it be that the owner of the left star superior room had only managed to grab 70 starry stones out of pure luck? In the blink of an eye, the giant hand grabbed 100 starry stones. Crack! Countless starry stones were shattered into pieces, leaving a total of 50 starry stones, emitting a blinding glow. At that instant, the hearts of the crowd, including Di Fengyan, shuddered violently. The first zone had 50 real starry stones? Bang! At that instant, the owner of the left star superior room reached out his hand once again, grabbing at the third zone. The third zone. Di Fengyan was startled once again. He clearly remembered that there were no starry stones in the third zone. Following this, the giant hand grabbed 30 starry stones and shattered them into pieces, while the remaining 70 starry stones emitted a blinding glow. Seeing this, Di Fengyan was stunned. The crowd was stunned too. The third zone had 70 real starry stones? Gasp! Following this, the crowd took a deep breath, including Di Fengyan. In their eyes, the first and third zones did not have any starry stones. However, the owner of the left star superior room had managed to grab a total of 120 starry stones from the two zones. Such a terrifying result proved that the eye technique of the owner of the left star cave was a lot stronger than theirs, and it was a few times stronger than theirs. Which martial saint expert is inside this left star supreme grade cave? The same thought crossed the crowd's mind, causing their faces to turn gloomy. Chapter 556. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 558. The princess is here. An hour later, the third starry river appeared. Bang! Bang! Just as the river water rolled over, a large hand, like lightning, scooped up the first handful, then the second handful. That's fast. The light emitted by the starry stones almost blinded the eyes of the crowd. The first time, 30 starry stones. The second time, 150 starry stones. It was only the beginning, but a total of 180 starry stones had been taken, which was more than half of the total. Quick! There will be none left if you don't do it now. F***K. Who's the big shot trying to compete with us? What kind of bad luck am I in? Following a series of gloomy voices, the experts rapidly made their moves and grabbed at Qin Nan as if they had gone mad. Even Di Fengyan felt a sense of urgency in his heart, as he continued to grab the starry stones. Bang! The owner of the left star cave made his move once again, grabbing an area and grabbing a total of 50 starry stones. Upon seeing this, the experts felt as if they had just received a heavy blow to their chest. 180 starry stones, and 50 starry stones at home, that was a total of 270 starry stones. How are they going to split the remaining 30 starry stones among themselves? The outcome left the crowd utterly speechless. Most of them did not manage to grab a single starry stone, while a few of them only managed to grab 5 starry stones at most. After all, when they entered the stellar pavilion to cultivate, a low-grade abode would cost 2,000 origin stones a day, let alone a mid-grade abode or high-grade abode. If they were unable to grab a certain amount of starry stones, they would suffer a loss. Normally, these experts would suffer a loss if they were unlucky, but this time, they had suffered a great loss. Even Di Fengyun's expression was rather ugly. The starry stones were extremely precious, as they could only be found inside the formation of White Tiger City. It was extremely difficult to buy them from the outside. As such, he had come to the Starry Pagoda to cultivate with the help of the Starry Pagoda. Who would have thought that he would stumble into such a mysterious and powerful presence? If I don't have enough stellar stones, I'll have to waste a lot of time if I want to master that cultivation method. Di Fengyun mumbled to himself as he clenched his fist. Was he really calm when Su Ao told him about Duan Qing's situation? In fact, he was not calm at all. His heart was burning with rage. Why was the art of the immortal phoenix not passed to him but to Duan Qing? However, his plan was not complete yet. He could not attack Zhou Bihua, Duan Qing, and the others. Forget it, let's wait a little longer. Di Fengyun, Di Fengyun, Di Fengyun, Di Fengyun, Di Fengyun, Di Fengyun, Di Fengyun. However, while the experts were feeling gloomy, inside the left star cave, Qin Nan glanced at the pile of starry stones in front of him and shook his head in pity. Love go little say, Netwaku, what a pity, everyone's cultivation is too strong, allowing them to attack so quickly. Otherwise, the 300 starry stones would not be able to escape from my grasp the second or third time. Qin Nan shook his head. If the people present were to know what he was thinking, it was likely that his gloomy chest would be ruthlessly stabbed with a knife. Time to cultivate. Qin Nan soon immersed his thoughts. This time, he did not practice the art of the immortal vermilion bird, as the process was extremely obscure. He would need to rest for 3 months and experience 10 life-and-death situations in order to master the first layer. He did not have enough time to do it. He was currently comprehending the secrets of the Martial Highness realm. What was the Martial Highness realm? It gave birth to the force of the Martial Highness realm, allowing one to control the martial skills, martial arts, and treasures. An ordinary peak martial dominator realm expert would only need to comprehend the secrets of the Martial Highness realm and condense their primordial spirit to produce the force of the Martial Highness realm. However, as Qin Nan was a law-defying martial dominator, his primordial spirit was nowhere to be seen. As such, Qin Nan would need to comprehend the secrets of the Martial Highness realm in advance to be able to control his primordial spirit to produce the force of the Martial Highness realm. Martial Highness, Supreme. What is the Supreme? The strongest in the world. Obviously, it's impossible to achieve the Martial Highness realm. There are countless experts in this world. Above the Martial Highness realm are the Martial Sacred realm, the Martial Ancestor, the Emperor Wu, etc. There's no way to be the strongest. Qin Nan immersed himself in his thoughts as he analyzed the secrets of the Martial Highness realm. At that instant, a rare occurrence took place. Qin Nan's blood began to boil. Qin Nan opened his eyes with a confused look. Why was his blood boiling all of a sudden? Suddenly, he recalled something. Previously, when Princess Miao Miao arrived through the illusionary mirror, his blood had boiled too. As expected, a magical force was emitted from his blood, which formed an illusionary mirror in front of him. On the mirror, an attractive face appeared. Xiao Nanzi, guess who this princess is? A clear and melodious voice rang out. In the mirror, Princess Miao Miao seemed to be walking around. As she walked, her hair danced wildly in the wind, giving her the appearance of a fairy. Qin Nan's mind went blank. Guess who the princess is? However, after 3 months, The illusionary mirror lit up once again, causing him to feel a strange warmth in his heart. Princess Meow Meow's pitch-black eyes landed onto Qin Nan's figure as if they had traveled a great distance. She glanced at him and clicked her tongue. "Kid, you've turned into Duan Qing? Why did you purposely make your skin so fair? Why do I feel like you're a woman?" Princess Meow Meow rambled on rapidly. She did not give Qin Nan any time to respond. In the end, her aura completely changed, as if she had turned into a lofty princess. She asked, "Where are the things you've prepared?" The princess's aura was intimidating. Even Qin Nan was startled by the sudden aura as he blurted out, "I've prepared quite a lot of wine for you over the past few months. The Heart liquid, the 5 flowers godly liquid." Qin Nan took out the bottles of wine and waved them in front of the mirror. Wow! The princess's aura came and went as she pleased. Her eyes glowed as she said excitedly, "Qin Nan, you're so impressive. You've prepared so many good wines. As expected of the princess's servant. Well done. It's all because of you." Qin Nan rolled his eyes and said grumpily, "If he did not get scolded, why would he look for wine? Why would he purposely owe someone a favor?" Suddenly, the joy on Princess Meow Meow's face disappeared. Her face fell and she said worriedly, "Little Nansy, what should I do? What should I do? I really want a drink." Qin Nan burst out laughing after seeing her reaction. Even the princess, who was as lawless as him, had such a pitiful look. However, she was quite cute. Sigh. Princess Meow Meow sighed. She seemed to have thought of something and said, "There's not much time left. A few days ago, I happened to see a jade slip. There's a set of skills in it. It's quite suitable for you, so I brought it to you. Listen carefully." A series of obscure words were uttered from Princess Meow Meow's lips. "Skills?" Qin Nan was startled. He soon became serious and memorized the words in his mind. After the period it took for an incense to burn, he had memorized the entire skill. Qin Nan's face was filled with astonishment. This cultivation method was actually an ancient technique, and an extraordinary one at that. "Hee, are you scared now?" Princess Meow Meow raised her chin proudly, before she said in a prideful tone as a sudden thought crossed her mind, "Don't misunderstand, I didn't purposely get it for you. It was a gift from someone else. The person was too friendly, begging me to accept it. Sigh, you know how merciful I am, so I had no choice but to accept it." Qin Nan's lips twitched. "Oh, time's up." Princess Meow Meow's pitch-black eyes seemed to be glowing. She looked at Qin Nan and said, "Little Nansy, keep the wine safe." Chapter 557. A Genius Will Remember Love in a Second/Small? SageNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 559 Sleeping Buddha Method. Meanwhile, at the First Duke's residence in White Tiger City. Almost every book you want to read is available. It's more reliable than the average website, and the updates are faster too. It's all text with no advertisements. For more information, visit www. Pavilion Leader. On the first day when the Starry River was activated, Duan Qing made his move 3 times, each time stronger than the last. The first time, he managed to grab 70 starry stones. The second time, a guard wearing an armor spoke. "You can leave now." The man at the leading position waved his hand, leaving no room for doubt. The guard swiftly withdrew, returning the hall to its calm state. He is indeed extraordinary to be chosen by Big Brother. Even Di Fengyun and the other experts are no match against him. The man wore a mocking grin as he said, "Oh Di Fengyun, what would your expression be if you knew that the owner of the Left Star Superior Room was Duan Qing?" The man fell silent after murmuring to himself, "Now that he has appeared in the Vermilion Bird platoon, there is hope. At least he did not let me down. Whatever, if this kid is going to stir a great chaos, How could we not follow the vermilion bird sacred badge? The man seemed to have made up his mind, who let out a sigh after a while. What a pity, Duan Qing only has a 6th grade D-ranked martial spirit. That's still too far away. Otherwise, how could the sky-scorching ancient kingdom allow Di Fengyun to be so smug? The man shook his head and remained silent. Meanwhile, in the starry pagoda, inside the left star supreme grade cave, Qin Nan wore a grin when he saw the illusionary mirror vanishing. Love go little say W. Chu. Despite Princess Miao Miao's firm tone, he would not believe it. It was most likely that the princess had purposely found this ancient martial art for him, and had spent a lot of effort on it. Advertisement: I should try my best to acquire some good wines, so that she can drink to her heart's content. After making up his mind, Qin Nan focused his attention on the ancient martial art that the princess had given him. This ancient technique was called the Sleeping Buddha style. There was a Buddha in the Western paradise who slept all year round. In his sleep, he comprehended the great Tao and cultivated in his dreams. This Sleeping Buddha style was not a killing move, defense, or anything like that. Instead, it was a mental cultivation technique. If one fully grasped it, they could evolve it into a killing move, and it could also protect the body. It was extremely profound. Sleeping Buddha, Sleeping Buddha. The mystery of this technique lies in sleeping. With his left eye of the divine god of battle, Qin Nan was able to learn most of the ancient martial art with a quick glance. However, this sleep is not true sleep. Instead, it means that one's mind has reached the depths of one's mind and entered a dreamlike mysterious feeling. Qin Nan held the starry stone in his hand as he continued to deduce the method of cultivating the Sleeping Buddha method in his mind. Due to the support of the star stone, Qin Nan only spent 2 hours to completely grasp it. Multitasking, asking the god in my sleep, acting as a martial highness. Qin Nan uttered a groan as he closed his eyes and lay down in the cave. His breathing returned to normal in the blink of an eye. Those who did not know what was going on would think that he had actually fallen asleep. However, the law-defying primordial spirit in Qin Nan's body shuddered as if it had gained its own intelligence, trying to comprehend the secrets of the martial highness realm. This was the brilliance of the Sleeping Buddha method, as it did not hinder the cultivator's cultivation. As for Qin Nan's mind, he was immersed in a blurry world. In this blurry world, he did not have a physical body, only his will, which continued to wander around. Each time he wandered around, it felt like he was experiencing the changes of life and comprehending the secrets of life. Puff, puff. Unknowingly, the starry stones in the surroundings were consumed rapidly, while Qin Nan's breathing became rapid like thunder. 3 hours later, following a bang, Qin Nan's aura became completely different. It felt like a puddle of murky water had suddenly become crystal clear. Buzz buzz buzz. On top of that, a golden glow was emitted from Qin Nan's forehead, giving him an extremely warm feeling. The surroundings were filled with the chants of the disciples of Buddhism. The voice gradually grew louder. In just the blink of an eye, it penetrated the forbidding aura of the left star superior immortal cave and echoed in the entire building. At that instant, it felt like a peerless Buddha was floating in the air and chanting toward the pagoda. The experts in the pagoda were instantly awakened by the sight, whose faces were filled with astonishment. What's going on? What kind of martial art is this? How did it cause such a great disturbance? Who exactly is it? The astonishment in the eyes of the experts grew thicker. Even Di Fengyun was astounded. The rooms of the starry pagoda were encapsulated by forbidding auras. Even martial sacred realm experts were unable to peek inside with their divine sense. Apart from that, the soundproofing effect of the rooms was extremely law-defying. Even Di Fengyun would not be able to disturb the others while he was practicing the martial art. It's the left star superior cave. One of the experts suddenly discovered the source of the chant. He was not the only one. The other experts also realized the same thing. This caused waves of shock to rise in their hearts once again. They had already guessed that the owner of the Left Star Superior Cave was no ordinary cultivator, who was at least a martial sacred realm expert. However, even an ordinary martial sacred realm expert would not be able to cause such a great disturbance. Could it be the sky-scorching emperor? If that's the case, it's most likely someone on the same level as Progenitor Wendao or the leader of the Trading Alliance. Gasp! Why would such an authority be here? The experts were left speechless. Even Di Fengyun was startled as he said, I wonder which great authority is inside the Left Star Superior Immortal Cave? Countless guesses flashed across his mind. Those authorities would never show themselves easily. I'm afraid this is my chance. When the time comes, I must meet this big shot. Who knows, it might be of help to my plan. Di Fengyun's eyes flickered with excitement. Normally, it would be extremely difficult for him to meet authorities on the level of Progenitor Wendao or the Sky-Scorching Emperor. Now that the opportunity had arrived, he would not hesitate to seize it. Qin Nan had no idea that he had caused such a great commotion while he was cultivating. He was currently immersed in a mysterious state. What's the end of life? What's the meaning of the martial world? What's the meaning of my birth? Everything in the world, is it fate or is it man-made? Countless complicated questions popped up in Qin Nan's mind like bamboo shoots after the rain. Qin Nan had no idea how to answer these questions, but as he continued to ponder and ask the questions, his heart continued to grow. As time gradually passed, the chants grew louder, causing Qin Nan's dream to grow deeper. Suddenly, a breeze appeared in Qin Nan's divine sense. The breeze was inserted into his divine sense, causing it to change rapidly, as if it had turned into a frozen lake. Chapter 558. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 560. Assassination by Death's Servant. While Qin Nan was cultivating in the Starry Pagoda, the atmosphere in the palace of White Tiger City changed tremendously as the date of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground approached. 79 XS. The first prince and the ninth prince had accused the third prince of not following the rules of the imperial court. The Ministry of Rights took the opportunity to send the second prince to the borderlands. The sky-scorching emperor did not give any instructions, but the next day, the people of the Ministry of Rights were stripped of their positions as they were accused of abusing their authority for personal reasons. The third prince made his move once again, causing the subordinates of the first prince and the ninth prince to betray him, resulting in a great loss. In the first round, the third prince had emerged victorious. On top of that, the second prince had suddenly left White Tiger City, leaving the other princes frowning. In the competition between the princes, the second prince's influence was on par with the first prince and the ninth prince. However, not only did he not attend the talent gathering hall, he had also left at such a crucial moment, causing the crowd to be curious. 4 days were gone in the blink of an eye. Only 1 day remained until the opening of the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. Buzz. Following the final chant, the entire pagoda fell silent. All the experts in the pavilion had a look of pity in their eyes. This Buddhist chant could calm their minds, and it was very beneficial for their cultivation. Meanwhile, in the Right Star Superior room, Di Fengyun's eyes sprang open as he was aware that the chant had disappeared. It seems like the senior has finished his cultivation? If that's the case, I should send someone to check his reaction. Di Fengyun immediately summoned the maid and left a letter for her to deliver to the senior. Inside the Left Star Superior room, Qin Nan's eyes slowly sprang open, which flickered with a golden glow. He had learned a lot after cultivating for the past 4 days. His mind was as clear as glass. Quick update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I love this kind of website, please leave a good review. Judging from the heaven-defying primordial spirit, I'm afraid it won't take long for it to produce the power of a martial highness. Qin Nan glanced inside his body. That formless primordial spirit began to emit a mysterious aura, as if some kind of change was about to take place. I've used up all the star stones. There's only 1 day left. It's time to go back. Qin Nan stood up and prepared to leave the Star Pavilion for the Imperial Palace. At that instant the formation flickered as the voice of a servant could be heard. Master Duanqing, Master Di Fengyun from next door, has sent you a letter, Di Fengyun. Qin Nan's expression froze. He naturally knew who Di Fengyun was, but why would he send him a message? Could it be that he had discovered his identity? Filled with doubts, Qin Nan withdrew the formation and received the letter. Following a glimpse, his expression became strange. The letter read, Junior Di Fengyun is aware that Senior's strength was undefeatable at the Starry River, which resulted in a rare phenomenon when you were cultivating your martial art. Senior, please give me a chance to entertain you and discuss martial arts with you. How does that sound? Senior, please accept. The words were extremely sincere. Di Fengyun is calling me senior? And he wants me to discuss martial arts with him? Qin Nan's lips twitched as he could not help but feel a sense of absurdity in his heart. Love go little say, Chu Di Fengyun, the top genius of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, who was currently the platoon leader of the White Tiger platoon. He had a bright future ahead of him. Furthermore, due to the relationship between the Vermilion Bird platoon and Zhou Bihua, Di Fengyun was considered his enemy. I'm afraid he still doesn't know who I am. He thinks I'm some kind of expert. Qin Nan soon came to a realization. His lips curled upward as he left Di Fengyun a letter and left the starry pagoda. At the same time, when the maid knocked on the right star abode, Di Fengyun hurriedly removed the formation and grabbed the letter. He took a deep breath and opened the letter. 2 words written in a flamboyant style entered his vision. No. It seems like it's impossible for me to establish a relationship with this senior. Di Fengyun shook his head and let out a sigh. It was a pity that he could not meet him. At that instant, his badge emitted a glow. Di Fengyun scanned it with his divine sense and tossed it aside without replying. According to the sound-conducting badge, Su Ao and the others were planning to deal with Duanqing. Although Di Fengyun was not fond of this Duanqing, his cultivation was too weak, thus there was no need for him to do it himself. Zhou Bihua. Di Fengyun's eyes burned fiercely with an icy aura. One day, he would let Zhou Bihua know that not teaching him the art of the immortal Vermilion Bird was the biggest mistake he had made in his life. Qin Nan frowned slightly as he walked on the main street of White Tiger City. Over the past few days, he had been practicing the Sleeping Buddha method, which improved his state of mind, allowing him to see his surroundings more clearly. As such, he could sense a faint murderous intent. Who is it? An assassin? Or something else? Qin Nan halted in his tracks as his eyes flickered thunderously while he swiftly scanned the cultivators within 100 meters. All of a sudden, he caught sight of a hunchbacked old man, who turned out to be a third-layer Martial Highness realm cultivator. Furthermore, the faint murderous intent was emitted from his figure. Did they send an assassin? But his cultivation. A hint of doubt surfaced in Qin Nan's mind. Die. The hunchbacked old man immediately knew that his identity had been exposed when he saw Qin Nan staring at him. He uttered a roar and unleashed his full strength without any warning, executing his strongest attack toward Qin Nan. The streets of White Tiger City trembled slightly, as the eyes of the cultivators on the streets were filled with astonishment. That was White Tiger City. This guy dared to attack in White Tiger City? How bold! Qin Nan had no time to hesitate. He drew out the ancient saber Ira and executed his strongest slash in the direction of the hunchbacked old man. Bang! The terrifying saber glow shattered the attack instantly, while the remaining saber intent collided with the old man's figure, sending him flying. Qin Nan purposely held back his strength to avoid killing the old man. Suppress! Qin Nan uttered a roar as the phoenix soul-consuming fire encapsulated his figure, which transformed into a giant bell and crushed downward onto the hunchbacked old man. At that instant, a rare occurrence took place. The hunchbacked old man's figure stiffened all of a sudden, before he fell to the ground without any sign of life. Qin Nan's eyes widened as his figure came to a stop. Did this guy just kill himself? Could it be a death servant? Qin Nan frowned. While he was browsing through the ancient books, he had read an article regarding the death servants. The death servants referred to the cultivators that were trained by various factions since they were young. These cultivators were extremely loyal, and would choose to commit suicide without hesitation if they failed their mission. However, the most important thing was, Qin Nan had already displayed his cultivation at the Talent Gathering Hall. It was impossible for a third-layer Martial Highness Realm Death Servant to assassinate him. Why would they send him out if they knew it was impossible? Why would they send him to his death? Bang! Chapter 559. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 561 Distorting Black and White Tiger City, the capital of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, where the royal family of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom and the headquarters of the trading alliance gathered. The security in the city was strict, thus no one dared to cause trouble. 79XS, now that a third-layer Martial Highness Realm expert had executed his strongest attack to assassinate Qin Nan in broad daylight, it felt like a bomb had exploded on the surface of a calm lake. Countless wisps of divine scents swept across the place. The cultivators from the other streets quickly arrived. In just 3 breaths' time, more than 3,000 people had arrived. At that instant, a figure descended with his aura fully unleashed. The newcomer was a middle-aged man with thick eyebrows. His face was solemn and dignified. He was wearing a white robe, and in the middle of the white robe was a bloody broadsword. Law Enforcement Team. The Law Enforcement Team is here. What the hell is going on? Why is there an assassination? Tisk tsk. The eyes of the surrounding cultivators flickered. All of you be quiet. The middle-aged man frowned and uttered a roar with his 5th-layer Martial Highness Realm cultivation, which served as a clap of thunder in the ears of the crowd. Even though there were a few peak Martial Highness Realm cultivators among the crowd, they still chose to keep their mouths shut. The scene instantly quieted down. The law enforcement team was responsible for maintaining the law and order of White Tiger City, thus the cultivators did not dare to offend them. The middle-aged man glanced at Qin Nan and asked, "You're Duan Qin?" As soon as these words were spoken, a commotion broke out in the surroundings. Duan Qin was Zhou Bihua's new disciple. How could they not recognize him? Full text reading. Was it someone else who tried to assassinate Duan Qin this time? That's right, I am. Qin Nan's face was calm. He pointed at the corpse and said, "This guy tried to assassinate me just now. In order to protect myself, I made a move. Before I could capture him, he chose to commit suicide." Many of the cultivators nodded in agreement. They had witnessed the scene too. He is lying. Suddenly, a roar could be heard as a young man walked out from the crowd with a cold grin on his face. This person was none other than the genius of the White Tiger platoon, who was knocked back by Qin Nan with a single cup of wine at the third prince's mansion, Yin Cheng. Under the crowd's gaze, Yin Cheng pointed at Qin Nan and said in a loud voice, "Senior, I was on this street just now, and I saw with my own eyes that Duan Qing suddenly attacked and tried to kill the hunchbacked old man. The hunchbacked old man was only a rank 3 martial honorable. He was no match for Duan Qing and died on the spot. That's right. I saw it too. As soon as Yin Qing spoke, one cultivator after another stepped forward and pointed at Qin Nan. Love go little say, Netwukuin, just a short period of time, there were actually dozens of people. Their expressions were firm, as if it was real. The cultivators who saw the truth of the matter were slightly startled. They quickly realized something and did not say anything. Duan Qing, what you've said is different from what the others have seen. According to the rules of the law enforcement team, we have to lock you up in the heavenly prison for 3 days. Within these 3 days, the law enforcement team will investigate the incident thoroughly. By then, we will know if you're innocent or not. The middle-aged man took a step forward and arrived before Qin Nan while unleashing his aura of the 5th layer martial highness realm. A cold grin appeared on Qin Nan's face. Lock him up for 3 days? Lock him up for 3 days? Tomorrow was the day when the Dragon Abyss mystical ground would be accessible. If he were to be locked up for 3 days, how could he participate in the trial? He finally understood why the law enforcement team had sent a 3rd layer martial highness realm death servant to assassinate him. It was a conspiracy. The law enforcement team could not afford to send a stronger death servant to assassinate him, as it would attract the attention of the Vermilion Bird platoon. Therefore, they had sent a 3rd layer martial highness realm death servant to attack him. Once Qin Nan intervened, the death servant would kill himself. With that, they would be able to openly send out Yin Qing and the others to confuse the truth. Following that, the law enforcement team would then lock him up for 3 days in order to investigate the truth, preventing him from participating in the trial. All of this could be said to be flawless. Qin Nan's eyes turned cold as he snapped, "It's all a conspiracy. Does the law enforcement team really need 3 days to investigate the truth?" The eyes of the surrounding cultivators flickered. The streets of White Tiger City were equipped with memory formations, which were able to record everything that had happened in a single day. It's the rule. We'll find out whether it's a conspiracy or not. You have to come with us now. Otherwise, you'll be considered as defying White Tiger City. The eyes of the law enforcement team flickered as he made his move to detain Qin Nan. How bold! A furious roar could be heard all of a sudden, which turned out to be Elder Wang. The hearts of the surrounding cultivators shuddered. It seemed like the incident was about to get serious, as even Elder Wang had shown himself. How bold of you, the law enforcement team, to detain someone from the Vermilion Bird platoon without any reason. Elder Wang's aura surged as he approached the middle-aged man of the law enforcement team. He, Elder Wang, this young cultivator of the law enforcement team is only enforcing the law. What's wrong with that? A hollow laugh could be heard, who turned out to be Su Ao. The crowd was immersed in an uproar once again. It seemed like the assassination attempt had escalated into a conflict between the two platoons. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. This Su Ao was really haunting them like a ghost. Platoon leader Su is right. Elder Wang, these are the rules. You can't refuse to cooperate with the law enforcement team just because Duan Qing is from the Vermilion Bird platoon. At that instant, a voice could be heard, which turned out to be the 9th Prince, Song Yu. The conspiracy was not Song Yu's doing, but as long as Duan Qing was not involved in it, it went without saying that he would side with Vice Platoon Leader Su Ao and the others. 9th Brother is right. Another person appeared among the crowd, who turned out to be the 1st Prince. The 1st Prince shared the same thought as Song Yu. As long as Duan Qing was not involved in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground, the 3rd Prince could simply ignore it. The hearts of the surrounding cultivators skipped a beat upon seeing this. 2 princes, the White Tiger platoon and the law enforcement team. They had all teamed up. It seemed like the storm this time was even more violent than they had expected. Elder Wang, the law enforcement team is only enforcing the law impartially. Why are you being so biased? We're only investigating Duan Qing for 3 days. Once we find out the truth, we'll let him go. Don't tell me that your Vermilion Bird platoon is planning to defy White Tiger City? An imperious roar could be heard all of a sudden. A figure appeared from the crowd. As soon as this person appeared, the expressions of the surrounding cultivators changed drastically. Su Ao's eyes also revealed a hint of mockery. The person was one of the authorities of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, the captain of the law enforcement team. Chapter 560. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 562. Being unreasonable. Everyone knew that the law enforcement team had a great authority in White Tiger City. That was fast. In a way, the captain of the law enforcement team had a higher status than Elder Wang and Su Ao. Elder Wang straightened his face. Qin Nan glanced toward the direction of the voice. They could only see a black-haired old man with a stern look on his face, with his hands behind him, slowly walking toward them from the sky. A formless aura spread across the place, causing the cultivators to feel as if a huge rock was pressing down on them, causing them to feel extremely oppressed. The captain of the law enforcement team, He Long, whose cultivation was at the peak martial highness realm. The eyes of the first prince and the 9th prince flickered slightly. They did not expect the enemy to have such a plan. If that was the case, even Elder Wang would not be able to protect Duan Qing. Captain He Long, the Vermilion Bird platoon, has always been loyal to the royal family. There's no doubt about that. Don't you dare accuse me. You only need to activate the memory formation to find out the truth. Why do you have to go to such great lengths to detain Duan Qing for 3 days? Elder Wang said in a dull tone, Don't tell me. Our platoon leader has to be here personally? Hearing this, Su Ao wore a disdainful look. Are you kidding me? Why would Zhou Bihua be involved in such a trivial matter? Zhou Bihua was one of the top 3 experts of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, the platoon leader of the Vermilion Bird platoon. He would only show himself when something serious was happening. Elder Wang, I don't want to waste my time with you. I have to bring Duan Qing away to cooperate with the investigation. If you dare to stop me, you'll be openly disobeying the orders of White Tiger City. He Long said in a slow tone. Each word was filled with an imperious aura. The captain of the law enforcement team was so imperious. He could even disregard Elder Wang's presence. Elder Wang's expression stiffened slightly. Quick update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most, please leave a good review. Disobeying the orders of White Tiger City? If he was accused of this, he would not be able to escape punishment. At that instant, a cold voice could be heard. Captain He Long, why are you in such a rush to arrest him? I have a memory formation here that can recreate what happened just now. At this moment, the 3rd prince appeared. He nodded his head toward Qin Nan and Elder Wang. Without wasting any time, he waved his hand, causing a formation to float in the air, from which a glowing screen was emitted. The light screen showed how Qin Nan was walking on the street, how he was attacked by the hunchbacked old man, how Qin Nan was forced to intervene, and how the hunchbacked old man committed suicide. The surrounding cultivators subconsciously glanced at He Long, Su Ao, and the others. Now that the evidence was conclusive, what would these people do? The eyes of the 1st prince and the 9th prince, Song Yu, turned cold. As soon as the incident happened, the 3rd prince received the news and quickly reacted by taking out the memory formation. Even the 2 of them were unable to do such a thing. So it's your highness. It was as if He Long did not see the memory formation. After greeting him calmly, his tone changed and became sterner. This memory formation can be tampered with. We need to investigate the truth of the incident. As the captain of the disciplinary team, I now give the order to arrest Duan Qing. His words were like thunder, echoing fiercely on the street. The surrounding cultivators stared with their eyes open wide. Captain He Long's attitude implied that he was going to arrest Duan Qing. Su Ao glanced at Qin Nan with a disdainful look. Trying to fight against the White Tiger platoon? Not a chance. The faces of the third prince and Elder Wang darkened. They did not expect He Long to be so unreasonable in front of the crowd. How were they going to resolve the situation? Were they going to watch Qin Nan being arrested and sent to the heavenly prison? They clearly knew that even though He Long, Su Ao, and the others had come prepared, they would not dare to do anything to him. They could only lock him up for 3 days at most. However, these 3 days were more than enough for him to miss the Dragon Abyss mystical ground and influence the entire situation. Qin Nan wore an expressionless face. Now that the evidence was right before their eyes, these people were trying to arrest him with their authority? If that was the case, they shouldn't blame him for showing no mercy. Without hesitation, Qin Nan took out the vermilion bird badge and transmitted his voice. That being said, Qin Nan still had a trump card, which was the Vermilion Bird Sacred Badge. Once he activated the Vermilion Bird Sacred Badge, every member of the Vermilion Bird platoon from the 1st batch to the 99th batch would receive the news and make their way here. If that was the case, the situation would become even more serious. Do it! He Long snapped as a terrifying aura burst out from his body as he unleashed his cultivation of the peak Martial Highness realm. He reached out his hand and grabbed in Qin Nan's direction. Captain He Long, I'm here to assist the disciplinary team. Su Ao burst out laughing upon seeing this as he unleashed his cultivation and made his move. In your dreams! Elder Wang's face turned pale as his figure was engulfed in flames, which transformed into the illusionary figure of a vermilion bird that dashed toward the two. He clearly knew that if Duan Qing were to be arrested, it would be the same as being dragged into a pack of wolves. He would have to wait for 3 days before he could be released. Furthermore, there was no telling how Duan Qing would be treated within these 3 days. Even if he were to be punished, he would not allow it to happen. Bang! 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 A series of explosions took place on the streets of White Tiger City. At that instant, the experts of White Tiger City were startled, who immediately scanned the place with their divine sense. Their faces were filled with astonishment after a glimpse. What exactly was going on? Why were Elder Wang, He Long and Su Ao fighting against one another? Could it be that something serious was about to happen to the sky-scorching ancient kingdom? Elder Wang, how bold of you! He Long's eyes were engulfed in flames of fury as he took a deep breath. Following this, his old body emitted a golden glow that expanded rapidly, transforming him into a golden giant in the blink of an eye, which suppressed Elder Wang's figure. Descent of the Vermilion Bird. Elder Wang uttered a roar as he summoned the illusionary figure of a vermilion bird and descended upon the mundane world. These two were both authorities of White Tiger City, thus their cultivations were on par with one another. Furthermore, He Long had purposely suppressed Elder Wang, thus he was able to keep Elder Wang busy for the time being. Duan Qing. Su Ao's eyes landed onto Qin Nan's figure as he uttered a hideous grin. Who asked you to be so smug and reject my offer? Let's see how you're going to escape today. Once I get my hands on you, I'll make you suffer so much that you'll feel like dying. While transmitting his voice, Su Ao's giant hand grabbed in Qin Nan's direction with a shocking force. The space above Qin Nan instantly crumbled, forming a cage, leaving him with nowhere to run. Crap! Elder Wang's face turned pale seeing this, but unfortunately, he had no chance of making his move as He Long was keeping Elder Wang busy. Third brother, how are you going to compete with me without Duan Qing? The first prince and the 9th prince could not help but burst out laughing upon seeing this. The third prince was indeed powerful, as he had remained in seclusion for many years. However, without Duan Qing's help, he would not pose any threat to them in the Dragon Abyss mystical ground. The third prince's expression stiffened. He did not expect these people to be so reckless. Could it be that? The third prince's eyes flickered with a hint of madness. Even if he had to reveal his trump card, there was no way he would let them get away with it. However, at that instant, a rare occurrence took place. A terrifying suppression surged forward from the rift like a surging river. Chapter 561. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by little? Here's a great novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 563. Overbearing and domineering, the suppression of the martial sacred realm. It's the suppression of the martial sacred realm. What? Even a martial sacred realm expert is here? Let's go and take a look. Most of the cultivators in White Tiger City were startled. A love go little say, Chu please go to this book, access. There were only a few martial sacred realm experts in the sky-scorching ancient kingdom. It was extremely difficult to meet one on a normal day. However, the conflict between Duan Qing and the White Tiger platoon had attracted the attention of a martial sacred realm expert. Bang! The space within 5 li was shattered into pieces. In the darkness, a man wearing a beast robe with flames surging behind his back could be seen. It was as if his figure was supporting the heavens and earth. This is... He Long and Su Ao's figures stiffened as they raised their heads. Their eyes widened when they saw the man. In addition to them, the first prince, the 9th prince, and the rest of the cultivators felt their hearts exploding. The man was none other than one of the top 3 experts of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, Zhou Bihua. Why is he here for such a trivial matter? He Long and Su Ao exchanged glances with one another. They could see the astonishment in each other's eyes. They were only planning to detain Duan Qing for 3 days. It was not like they were planning to kill him. Why would Zhou Bihua be involved in this? That didn't make any sense. Platoon leader. Elder Wang became energetic when he saw Zhou Bihua, who blurted out furiously, "The people of the law enforcement team and Su Ao are trying to twist the truth to detain Duan Qing." Before he could finish, Zhou Bihua's figure landed beside Qin Nan with an expressionless face. Bang! It was as if the streets of White Tiger City were being suppressed by an ancient godly mountain. Countless defensive formations were activated, resulting in a shocking explosion. Reading in full, a terrifying gust of wind was swept forward like a roaring dragon. Among the cultivators spectating the scene, those with weaker cultivations were knocked backward by the terrifying gust of wind. Gulp! Someone in the crowd swallowed a mouthful of saliva, which was abnormally loud. Everyone was aghast. This was Zhou Bihua. His every move was filled with an imposing aura. This battalion commander Zhou, why are you here? After recovering from his initial shock, He Long forced a smile onto his stern face and said, "Platoon leader Zhou, please don't blame us for our previous actions. We were only following the rules." "Captain, he is right." The hideous grin on Su Ao's face disappeared instantly, as if it had never existed. Zhou Bihua's sudden arrival was completely out of their expectations. However, at this point, there was nothing left to say. Everything was already a foregone conclusion. With Zhou Bihua here, the plan could no longer be carried out. There was no way to capture Qin Nan. He could only lower his voice and appease this storm. The surrounding cultivators were astounded seeing this. Previously, Su Ao and He Long were extremely scornful, completely disregarding Elder Wang's presence. However, with Zhou Bihua's presence, they immediately lowered their heads without hesitation. "Let's go." The first prince and the 9th prince recovered from their shock. They exchanged glances with each other, before quietly retreating to the back. The plan had nothing to do with them. They were only here to show their support. Since Zhou Bihua was here, it was meaningless for them to stay any longer. They would only be asking for trouble. As for Yin Cheng, who had accused Qin Nan and the rest of the cultivators, their figures began to tremble as if they had just encountered a terrifying presence. Their eyes were filled with terror. "Piss off!" Zhou Bihua uttered a roar with an expressionless face. The expressions of the first prince and the ninth prince, who were quietly retreating in the crowd, changed abruptly. Then, an invisible gust of wind condensed into two terrifying giant hands and ruthlessly slapped them on their bodies. Bang bang! Following two explosions, their figures were sent flying over 100 meters away, slamming into the walls of the palaces. At that instant, the surrounding cultivators and the experts who had arrived after hearing the news were dumbfounded. Ordinary people would not react that way, but these two were the first prince and the ninth prince, the sons of the sky-scorching emperor. Beating the princes was equivalent to challenging the entire sky-scorching emperor. Only Su Ao and He Long, the two authorities of the sky-scorching empire, were left in awe. Even the two princes were sent flying. What about them? Platoon leader Zhou. He Long's heart skipped a beat upon seeing this. He tried his best to remain calm as he spoke, but his voice was stuttering, as if he had lost all his strength. Meanwhile, several powerful divine senses were transmitted to the street from White Tiger City, the palace, and the headquarters of the Trading Alliance. In just a short period of time, most of the experts in White Tiger City were startled. Despite that, the place remained silent, as no one dared to approach them. Zhou Bihua's face remained expressionless as he shifted his gaze onto He Long's figure and said in an emotionless tone, "Why are you doing this? This. He Long did not expect Zhou Bihua to ask such a question all of a sudden. He was startled for a moment, before he quickly collected his thoughts and said with a wry smile, "Platoon leader Zhou, you can't blame us for this." Duan Qing was involved in the assassination attempt, which involved the death servants, thus the situation was extremely complicated, thus I had no choice. Before he could finish, Zhou Bihua interrupted him and asked in a cold tone, "He Long, do you know the rules of the Vermilion Bird Platoon?" "The rules of the Vermilion Bird Platoon?" He Long and Su Ao were startled. "The rules of the Vermilion Bird Platoon? What rules?" All the gathered divine wills and the surrounding cultivators were stunned on the spot. They had never heard of any special rules of the Vermilion Bird Platoon. A soft voice could be heard from the crowd all of a sudden. "I remember that the people of the Vermilion Bird Platoon are very protective of their disciples." The crowd shuddered hearing the words, as if they were enlightened. That's right. The people of the Vermilion Bird Platoon were very protective of their disciples. The cultivators of the eastern continent of the Upper District were well aware of the rules for the past few hundred years. In terms of rules, these were definitely the rules. If anyone dared to bully the people of the Vermilion Bird Platoon, regardless of their identity, the Vermilion Bird Platoon would definitely pay them back. "Platoon leader Zhou, this is White Tiger City, what are you trying to do?" He Long and Su Ao immediately collected their thoughts after hearing the words, causing their faces to turn pale white as they blurted out. However, before they could finish their words, Zhou Bihua, who had been calm all this while, suddenly burst into a towering rage. "Since when did you guys dare to target the people of the Vermilion Bird Platoon?" The shocking roar felt like the space above White Tiger City had exploded, which penetrated into the hearts of the crowd. Bang! Bang! Chapter 562. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? SageNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 564. 5,800,000. The martial sacred realm was considered one of the top cultivators in the eastern continent. Each of their actions possessed the force of the martial sacred realm, resulting in a terrifying scene. Love Go Little Say Ku Cotton Candy, 79XS. As soon as Zhou Bihua made his move, a terrifying storm swept the streets of White Tiger City. White Tiger City. Help! Su Ao and He Long, the two peak martial highness realm cultivators, let out a roar as they sensed a strong sense of death approaching. White Tiger City was a half-monarch weapon, thus it had a weapon spirit. If a battle were to take place in White Tiger City, it would intervene. However, the entire White Tiger City fell into a dead silence. Bang! Bang! Su Ao and He Long's figures were struck almost at the same time. They could only feel the tremendous force colliding with their bodies, causing the defensive force of the martial highness realm to shatter instantly. At that instant, Su Ao and He Long's bodies exploded, causing blood to spurt out from their mouth. Every bone in their bodies was shattered into pieces, causing the pain to accumulate and grow tremendously, causing them to let out cries of agony. Bang! Their figures were sent flying and slammed into one of the palaces, resulting in a huge pit. Blood splattered everywhere in the shape of a flower. Two peak martial highness realm cultivators, the authorities of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, were severely injured with a single attack. This, for some reason, the experts could feel a chill running down their spines seeing this. What did it mean to be powerful? What did it mean to be domineering? This was it. He had sent two princes flying in broad daylight in White Tiger City because he was not in a good mood, and had even severely injured the two authorities. Whoosh! Zhou Bihua's gaze suddenly landed on Yin Cheng and the cultivators who had accused Qin Nan of being the culprit. Bang! Yin Cheng and the others were only at the martial highness realm or the martial dominator realm. Their figures shuddered when Zhou Bihua's gaze landed on them, causing them to almost drop to their knees. Advertisement. Zhou Bihua couldn't even be bothered to say a word. He waved his hand, sending out a boundless energy that sent all of them flying. Their bones, dantians, and other things all exploded. At this moment, the street was filled with the smell of blood. Everyone, listen up! Zhou Bihua suddenly opened his mouth. He raised his head and stared at the sky. His voice exploded in all directions. No matter who it is, I don't care. No matter which power it was. If he dared to use such despicable methods to suppress Duan Qing, then don't blame me for falling out with you. This time, it's a warning. Next time, it's a massacre. A terrifying murderous intent was emitted from Zhou Bihua's body. The experts who had sent their divine senses to this place were all shocked. They had never thought that Qin Nan would have such a high position in Zhou Bihua's heart. He had even said the words "start a massacre." The experts of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom, who had lived for over 100 years, were clearly aware of Zhou Bihua's personality. If he were to say something, he would not show any mercy, even if the person was a prince or a princess. Senior Qin Nan was slightly startled, before his heart was filled with warmth. Due to the blood-winged vermilion bird, Zhou Bihua had accepted him as his successor and given him the vermilion bird sacred badge. However, there was no need for Zhou Bihua to go on a killing spree for his sake. At this instant, Qin Nan realized that Zhou Bihua was not just saying it for fun, but had actually treated him as his successor. Take this. Zhou Bihua withdrew his aura and tossed a storage bag to Qin Nan. He nodded slightly and tore the rift apart without saying a word, leaving the place. Haha, Duan Qing, I'll be leaving too, Elder Wang laughed heartily. His spirit was refreshed, and he followed Zhou Bihua's footsteps closely. Duan Qing, let's go. The third prince collected his thoughts and scanned his surroundings, before he dragged Qin Nan back to the palace. The third prince clearly knew that the street would attract the attention of the authorities after what had happened in White Tiger City. It would be troublesome if they were to stay there any longer. As Zhou Bihua, Qin Nan, and the others left, countless authorities arrived on the street of White Tiger City. That's the Minister of Justice. Oh my god, the platoon leader of the Black Tortoise platoon is here too. TSK. Isn't that the vice leader of the Trading Alliance? Gasp, including a few other authorities. More than half of the authorities of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom are here. Countless astonished voices could be heard in various places in White Tiger City. On the street, several authorities stood in midair while emitting the auras of the peak Martial Highness realm, resulting in a terrifying sight. Their gazes were fixed onto He Long and Su Ao, who were severely injured. Their eyes flickered as they remained silent. Whoosh! A terrifying figure appeared all of a sudden, wearing a beast-hide coat and fiery red hair. It was none other than Di Fengyun. Di Fengyun looked at the two seriously injured people with a gloomy expression on his face. It was as if there was a large amount of magma exploding within his eyes. The temperature of the streets around him also rose rapidly. Di Fengyun is enraged. The eyes of the authorities flickered. Platoon leader. This Zhou Bihua. Simply lawless. This is White Tiger City, and he dares to attack in public. Does he have any respect for the royal family of the sky-scorching ancient kingdom? Why don't we report this to the sky-scorching emperor and ask him to be impeached? The Minister of Justice stepped forward and yelled. He was quite close to He Long, thus he was enraged when he saw He Long being severely injured. However, before he could finish speaking, Di Fengyun's expression suddenly turned ferocious as he roared, "Shut up!" The Minister of Justice and the surrounding experts were startled. They had never seen Di Fengyun lose his composure like this. Could it be that he was enraged after seeing Su Ao and He Long being injured? Ridiculous! Di Fengyun burst out laughing all of a sudden. His laughter was filled with an eerie aura. You dare to injure two authorities just because of a mere Duan Qing, and even announce to the entire sky-scorching ancient kingdom that anyone who dares to oppose Duan Qing will be slaughtered. What a great massacre! What a great massacre! Di Fengyun was infuriated. He was not angry because of Su Ao and He Long, but because of Zhou Bihua's attitude. First the art of the immortal vermilion bird, and now he attacked in public. Zhou Bihua, what right do you have to be so biased? I, Di Fengyun, am the top genius here. Who does that Duan Qing think he is? Meanwhile, in the third prince's residence. I'm afraid what happened today is related to second brother. The third prince said with a stern expression, Second brother has yet to show himself, and the platoon leader of the 99th batch of the White Tiger platoon is missing too. I suspect that second brother is planning something. The second prince, huh? Qin Nan's eyes flickered coldly. Although Zhou Bihua's appearance had helped him to calm the situation, Qin Nan was still holding a grudge in his heart. The trial of the Dragon Abyss Mystical Ground will take place tomorrow. Let's have a good rest today. Regardless of what the second prince is planning, we'll deal with it accordingly. Qin Nan spoke slowly. The third prince nodded his head after a slight ponder. Under the circumstances, they could only try their best and leave the rest to fate. Qin Nan found a residence and began to cultivate his mind with the sleeping Buddha method. By the way, Senior gave me a storage bag just then. Qin Nan immediately recalled something and slapped his head. He immediately took out the storage bag and inspected it with his divine sense. With a single glance, his entire face was filled with incomparable shock. 5,800,000 primary stones. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.